Coming to you from the TLD studios in Temecula, California, it's the Whiskey Throttle Show, taking you deep inside the lives of the legends and leaders of our sport. This week's guest is brought to you by Yamaha, the leaders in the power sports industry. Motocross bikes, street bikes, adventure bikes, side-by-sides, quads, boats, generators. Yamaha sets the standard. Yamaha revs your heart. Method Race Wheels, the strongest, lightest, fastest wheels in off-road. Method dominates the off-road market with wheels for your truck, sprinter, Jeep, or UTV. Go to methodracewheels.com/whiskey throttle for 20% off your order. Troy Lee Designs, built for the world's fastest racers. TLD blends elite level protection with industry-leading style and performance. Moto, bike, helmet paint, casual wear, whatever your passion, Troy Lee Designs is waiting for you on the next level. Nihilo Concepts, enhance your riding experience with superior products like the Start-Stop Conversion Kit, Fuel Petcocks, Frame Grip Tape, Lever Grip, Grip Donuts, Secondary On Switch, Billet Foot Pegs, Billet Throttle Housings, and so much more. Nihilo Concepts produces exceptional products, all of which are made right here in America. And by SKDA. SKDA is the ultimate destination for exceptional motocross graphics, customer service, and artistic excellence. Trust them to elevate your ride and showcase your individuality on the track, making every ride an exceptional experience. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us here at the Whiskey Throttle Show. I'm your host, David Pingree, and joined today by a guy that I've been really excited to have on the show. Probably has his hands in more championships than anyone in the sport outside of Roger DeCosters, I think. And it's the Red Bull KTM team manager, Ian Harrison. Thanks for joining us, man.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on. I've known you from way back and when you were Greg Albertyn's mechanic, and Albie's, I love that guy like a brother. So just by proxy, I loved you too.
Well, thanks.
So thanks for coming on, man. I'm excited to get into, your involvement from Albie's racing days. Then you stayed at Suzuki with Roger and won a whole lot of races and titles with Ricky, Reed, James, Dungey. Then went to KTM where you've got more Dungey, Cooper, wins across. I mean, it's impressive what you've been involved with.
Well, thank you. It's been, I love it. So every year it's just like you start over again,
Yeah. Well, you have to. You can tell that passion, you and Roger both, because I don't know how old he is now, close to 70.
Roger is
68?
No, Roger's 79.
Oh my God. And he's still just in it,
Yeah.
You have to love something.
Really love it.
So it shows. We start off all our shows with the Method Race Wheels front end chatter. They bring you the lightest, strongest, fastest wheels in off-road. If you guys are in the market for wheels for your truck or sprinter van or your side-by-side, 20% off using our code Whiskey Throttle. Great stuff over there. Check them out. Just go to methodracewheels.com/Whiskey Throttle. They'll send you the code and you're off to the races. Ian, so this has been, I talked to you preseason, I remember, and it's been a couple frustrating years for you, I think, over there. Not having a guy who's really in the title fight and Cooper being a little kind of hot and cold. But man, he's really turned it around for this year. So I wanted to ask you what change you saw in him from last year to this year.
It's a couple. One is we did some work on the bike in the off season. We were lucky enough to get a couple guys actually that are involved in the MotoGP riding. And they came and did some data acquisition with us, and there were a few things they tried, and those days can be pretty boring, because taking suspension off is a few minutes normally, but with all that stuff on there can take a while, and they're like, be careful with this and watch this and that. But anyway, I was out there watching, and one of the settings they put on the bike went out, and I was like, what is that? You could just literally see an improvement all around, and then right away you get this feel. I knew like, okay, we've hit on the right thing. Here we go. We're on our way. And we basically introduced that to nearly all the guys across, because we have a couple different platforms there, of course, with Gas Husky, and KTM, and it was a go for all of them.
Really? Across the board?
Across the board. And even though they all had different settings, what we came up with, we adapted to all their individual settings, and it took like this. So it didn't matter if they were using a different linkage or different offset or different forks, it all took.
Wow.
So and then
was that like a valving setup, or is it something, an internal piece? Or you can't really talk. I don't want to get you in trouble.
It was with suspension. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
And then,
are you guys getting a lot out of that MotoGP technology and experience? I mean, KTM's made a big push into that. So
I think so. You know, they are on another level when it comes to data acquisition and understanding the pitch of the bike and all of that. We still often go by what you see, and it's pretty incredible what a mechanic or a team manager or even a rider on the side can see visually, you know. But when you have this data and it confirms that yes, this is what happened, you can really use that. And but it's time consuming to go through these things. But in this case, it was really worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember some of the stuff we did in Supermoto, and you can get really good feedback there because the track doesn't really change, right? Like temps maybe a little, but it's consistent and you can do it over and over and over. In Moto, because the track breaks down and it gets drier or whatever, it's hard to duplicate something. So it makes that data harder to get or harder to suss out a little bit. Yeah. So it's interesting that you guys were able to do that. I mean...
Yeah, you're exactly right. Like Moto, you have a tall guy, a short guy. So a tall guy, he can move all the way back, move all the way forward. A short guy doesn't have that same leverage set. You have to work in such a large spectrum to get something to work with each guy. Whereas in MotoGP, they're stuck on their seat. You know, they're in their seat and they lean. It's very, very different. I think the center of gravity of the bike is much easier to get a lock on compared to motocross. Like if I go with Plessinger and Cooper, and you're talking about two completely different guys, and the way they can leverage a bike. Now we're saying that I do feel that shorter guys, it's easier to set the bike up. They don't have as much leverage, so it's easier to keep them in the pocket or the window compared to a taller guy.
Interesting. A lot more throw, huh?
And if he's tired and he's hanging back a little bit, the whole thing can go to shambles. Or if he's feeling really good and he's in his window, it's fantastic. So, they tend, over the years, I've noticed that.
I wonder if Sexton's having that issue. He's a tall guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably not going to offer anything on that either. Do you guys scratch your head at that a little bit? Are you watching, trying to figure out what's happening?
I watch.
He's thrown at least 5 wins away.
Yeah, I watch him and raw speed is incredible.
If he harnesses it, people are in trouble.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I wonder, but you know, there are a lot of
so many things, right?
That you think are so easy and you could fix in a heartbeat, but it's that simple.
No,
otherwise, I'm sure Honda would have done it already.
Yeah, I'm sure those guys are over there working hard at it. You've been kind of Roger's protege since early 2000s, working with him, right?
Actually,
or 90.
Yes.
Oh man,
you're right. So
96,
1994. I started with him. He picked me up from the airport in LA in November of 1994 in a Ford Econovan with my toolbox and my backpack.
Everything you needed, right?
Everything I needed.
Well, what are some of the things that you've learned from him, whether it's a technical thing or just a mindset? If you had to list a couple of things that are like the most important things you hold on to that he's taught you.
Oh man, never give up. You know, there's always untapped potential that you don't know is there. I remember in those days with Suzuki when, I mean, you basically had to drag someone over there to get them to ride it. But he believed in it all the time, and that positive thinking was a big part for me, because I can easily jump into the negative part, you know, and spiral out of control. So I'd say that hard work, the way he looked at things, he's like a no BS guy, you know.
Yeah,
it's pretty much yes or no, and many times the no is hard to accept. And I must say, there's so many times I went home and told my wife, man, this guy's cool, you know, I'm over it. But then the more I thought about it, or the next day we would go testing, or the next day we'd be out working, what he told me pretty much came around. And the things he's seen from the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, it's crazy. We make the same errors over and over again. When we develop a new bike, it's new engineers who've just come out of engineering school. They make these, they've been taught these philosophies, they make them, they find out it's wrong. They start working with the older guys, they correct it. That thing goes through.
That cycle just keeps happening.
And really, you get the new, it happens over and over again. And yes, it's in a different aspect, but the root cause is really the same thing.
So he's able to spot that and go, I saw this before, you know, the 78, whatever.
Exactly. When he tells me, oh yeah, we had this problem and we fixed it in 1967 on a CZ, I'm like, are you kidding me? No. And they had a titanium frame back then. In the 60s, they had titanium rims, like all these things you think are new. They already drew around way back in the,
Sometimes I want Roger to be nicer. You know, like he's just not very, like when I see you at the race, I'm like, hey, Ian, and you'll stop and shake my hand and you're friendly. He's not. He's just really not, right? He's just kind of like, if I get a head nod, I'm like, all right, Raj, acknowledge that I'm alive over here.
Yeah.
But damn it, it's hard not to respect just the knowledge and the passion for it. I mean, who's not retired at 78? I'd be on a beach somewhere. He's sure it's financially just fine.
Yeah, I'm sure. He, it's funny you say that. A lot of people mention that, but to me, he's a very, very humble person.
Really?
Yeah, extremely humble. Never really gets embarrassed if someone makes too much of a fuss about him, you know. And as a boss and as a friend, he's been incredible. I mean, it's nearly 30 years for me, 29 years working with him. That's longer than most marriages. And I swear, I'm with the guy pretty much like 10 hours a day.
Probably more than your wife.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he just doesn't like me.
No. No, he can have that.
He's just got a
feel sometimes.
Yeah, a little bit of a feel. Okay, well, that was our Method Race Wheels front end chatter. Get over and check those guys out. And if you haven't been to whiskeythrottlemedia.com yet, go have a look at all the content we put up over there. Vintage Iron Project, if you like vintage stuff. We got Jeff Ward riding his actual 84 KX125 that he won his title on. Just lots of new cool stuff over there. Merch. We've got a forum and lots of cool stuff. Check us out. Our guest is brought to you today by Yamaha. Let's get into his story. Ian, tell me about growing up in South Africa. Where were you? Johannesburg area?
Yes, Johannesburg. I grew up in a little city called Honeydew, and I was on a farm with my brother. We were very close, only a year apart.
Okay.
And we were out in the sticks, so we didn't get to see people. So we were the best of friends as kids, and I always liked motorcycles, but my parents thought they were like a coffin on wheels, you know. So they showed no real interest in it. And then I met a kid in school, of course, and I think I was in maybe 2nd or 3rd grade, and he had an Italjet, and I went to his house. I still remember it was yellow, and he let me ride it, and that's all I could think about from that day on. I mean, I loved the smell of the 2-stroke gas. I loved the feel, that freedom of just riding on your own down through the backyard. I was like, I got to get one of these things. I have to do it.
Those Italjets were cool too, even back then.
Yeah.
They were kind of ahead of like the Weisinger or whatever else you could get. It was another level.
Yeah. So that was my first taste.
So what would that have been? You'd have been, you say maybe 7?
I must have been 7, around 8. So it was in the like 77, around there.
Okay.
1977.
So how did your folks take that?
My folks still were not really into it, but actually at school we had to take 2 languages. It was compulsory.
Okay.
And if you failed either language, you had to repeat the entire year. And I was never a great reader. I struggled a little bit. So even when I had to take Dutch, that was even tougher for me. So my folks quickly learned that, hey, this could be a good tool for some leverage.
Yeah.
You know, having a motorcycle. So I worked in the yard for a couple of years, mowing the lawn, saving up some money, and I bought my first motorcycle it was 100 Rand at that time.
Which is equivalent to how many?
Which is most probably, at that time, was most probably equivalent to 150 US.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
All right.
So
what was it?
It was I don't even think they have them here. It was a B100 Suzuki.
Never heard of it.
Yes. It was like a kind of a street bike, a little bit of a street bike. It had two pipes that came out the bottom, but it barely ran, but it had two wheels and an engine. So it's always happening. Yeah.
So because it was older, did that get you working on it and kind of interested in the mechanics side right away?
Yes. I started working on I worked on a little bit, and a neighbor down the road from us, he was in the army and he raced. And he saw me riding down the dirt road a couple of times, and he started talking to me, and so eventually I struck up a friendship with this guy, and he was already in his 20s, and I was maybe 11 years old, 10 years old, and I would go to the races with him on a Saturday. My parents let me go with him, and I'd wash his bike after the race, and that's the first time I laid eyes on guys like Robbie Herring and Greg Albertyn. These were young. Greg was actually, he was racing really young, but his brother was racing.
Yep.
And so I was just seeing them in the background. And then that was my next step. I wanted to race. And I would go to, once in a while, we'd go to the local mall, and I'd go straight to the magazine store, and buy any magazine I could with any kind of motocross picture. And I remember, at that time was Johnny O'Mara and Rick Johnson and David Bailey, and I had those things plastered all over my bedroom closets,
Yeah.
And I used to lie on my bed when I was a kid just thinking, how am I going to get there? That was
Really?
Yeah. I was like, how am I going to get there? I just wanted to be a part of that, and I used to look at those pictures and think, how do they keep their bikes so clean,
Now you know.
Yeah.
You did a lot of that.
Yeah.
That's great. And I loved Albie's story of how he met you. I just thought it was so ironic. You came up to him and his dad asking for jetting help. Yeah. I'm like, how funny is that?
Yeah. So then a couple of years went by after I met this guy who was in the military down the street from me, and my folks, he actually got called away. So he wasn't there for 3 months. I begged my mom and dad, please take me to the track. And I had this little red Rocket Honda.
Okay.
It was 80cc, they were all red.
Yeah.
I think it was a 79. And my dad finally agreed. I couldn't believe it. So we went to the track, and same thing, Greg and them all riding. And this has got to be early 80s. And
Rob Herring was good.
Yeah.
Like sneaky good.
Yes.
He should have been a world champion, bro.
Yeah. And so we go to the track, and my dad's like, hey, why are you not riding like at this speed? So, the first thing I said, my bike's 5 years older, I don't have this right gear, and I got every excuse under the sun. But actually, he was so hooked.
But your dad got hooked.
From that first, I think within a month, he had bought my brother and I a new bike, and we went to our first race.
That's cool.
Yeah. So he was fully hooked from there. And then getting into your jetting story.
Yeah.
We racing then, there was fuel embargoes on South Africa because of apartheid. So all racing was mainly methanol. You had to use methanol in your bikes, which was incredible because it was like running them on alcohol, but you had to drill the jets. You couldn't even buy a big enough jet. So that was long before any cordless drill or anything like that. So my brother's there with a vice grip on the trailer. I've got an electric drill plugged into a little generator, and I'm going to drill it. And Greg's dad's like, no. Right, hold on. And he had a nice little vice and everything. And so we kind of met through Greg's dad and her. And not to get too far off track, but that's why our races were so short when we were kids, because the gas would only last 15 minutes.
Yeah, you're balling through it.
Yeah, because you're sucking that stuff down like crazy,
What size main jets were they end up being like?
We used to
trying to think of what the biggest jets were.
Yeah, like now, like on I remember 125s, and I could be off a little bit, but you'd use maybe a 130 to a 165 or something. So that means it's like a 1.65 millimeter.
Okay.
Well, we were using 3.2 millimeter on an 80. I mean, the thing was like sucking down diesel, but man, they were.
But they ran really.
Yeah. Yeah. They weren't so clean off the bottom, but up top they ran good.
Like a dragster.
Yeah.
All sloppy, and then when you get on the gas, it stays soft.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's great. And it's funny that the dads, because my dad had the same thing. He didn't really, we trail rode and stuff. Racing was never on his radar. And we went to his best friend's kids raced. And we went and watched one, and my dad was hooked. I didn't even really care about it. I just like to ride.
Yeah.
He was like, oh no, we're racing. I mean, let's go. I mean, he loved it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's cool that when your family gets into it, that's what we try to tell people, right? It's a fun family sport.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny. And your wife, Penny, now she went to school with Greg too. I didn't hear that.
Yeah. So then I met Greg, of course, and Greg went to a Christian school just down the road from him, and my wife went there and her brother. So
did you know her then?
I didn't know her then. So this was in the early days, and then I met her brother through Greg because they became good friends.
Okay.
And then of course I met her and her family too. Yeah. And then years later we got married, of course.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's just a neat little tie-in.
Yeah.
It's funny. So once you met Greg that day, you guys were kind of buddies from that point on?
Yeah. So of course Greg was like a superstar for me, He was winning there. He was sponsored. I thought he was like
was he on mini bikes or just?
He was mini. So
yeah, mini bikes.
80,
okay. Yeah.
I think, yeah, it was 80 and yeah, he was a great rider, and you could see he was destined to do great things.
Yeah.
He was just incredible. And I was a great practicer, terrible racer.
It's nice though that you race, so you at least understand what guys go through.
Oh, dude, I lived to ride. Yeah. I loved it. I loved every race I went to as a kid. I loved going practicing. It got me through high school, and look what it's done for my life. I mean,
you're living your dream.
Yes, it was actually my stepping stone to where I am today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So were you doing, like, was your dad good at mechanics, or were you kind of working on your bikes?
No, my dad, I think he could have worked on them, but he didn't touch anything. He had a beer in his hand, and the most important thing to him was everything had to be clean. I mean, the car, the trailer, the bikes, your gear, everything. So he had us pretty much pinned down the whole week because we'd be cleaning all that stuff to get ready to go Saturday.
And you didn't go unless it was shiny.
Everything had to be shiny. So yeah, but yeah, he was awesome.
Good supervisor. He
perfect supervisor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. So at what point did you start getting more serious about mechanicking?
Well, I
like, how did you get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm not going to make it as a racer?
Yeah, I never really thought about it like that, but I always tinkered with things when I was a kid. It didn't matter what it was. If the vacuum cleaner broke, I took it apart. My mom would come, what are you doing? How are you going to put it together? But I just loved to know how things work, If it was a TV, anything. And I would say it was a 50-50. Sometimes I got it going, sometimes it never ran again.
Mom, we're going to need a new TV.
But it always intrigued me how things worked. So in South Africa, in high school, I was lucky enough to go to a technical high school. What that means is you already start your trade in high school. It's pretty common in Europe. And so I took a diesel mechanic course. So that started in 9th grade.
Wow.
Yeah, so you already start doing it. So when you finish school, most guys will get what they call an apprenticeship. So they'll pay you to work and to study to finish your diploma.
Gotcha.
And so that's what I ended up doing. And I did it mainly because I thought it would be a good source of income. My dad at that point had a transport business, and he kept telling me how expensive it was to get mechanics. So I thought, okay, well, this will be good.
I'm going to take Pops to the cleaners.
Yeah, exactly. And so I started that, and then Greg left, of course, to go overseas and start his journey over there. And I want to say that was maybe 89.
Okay.
And so I was now working for the Johannesburg City Council on police cars for 6 months, and then 6 months I went to college. And then the next 6 months, which was my second year, I worked in the bus department for the diesel side. And man, it was, I remember the first day I got there, the guy said to me, and the first thing he showed me was the showers. I'm like, who cares about the showers, you know?
After you've been grinding around in the
first bus, they pull in there and they go, okay, you got to do a brake job on this thing. Within 5 minutes, you black. You just dirty. You can't even get it off. You stained, you know? And so then I was like, I don't know why the showers are there. But so I was actually halfway through that year in 1991 when Greg's dad approached me and said, hey, would you like to go to Europe and work for Greg as a mechanic? And I was like, yeah, of course, I'd love to. Not knowing what I was getting myself into. At that point, I'd never been on an airplane before. I just traveled around my own country. Actually, that's not true. I'd been in a small plane. My mom had her PPL, but I hadn't really traveled anywhere. I'd never left South Africa, just to neighboring countries, but they were very similar.
Yeah. So your folks, well, how old would you have been? I guess you're 18.
That would have been, I was 21.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, 21.
And so you didn't have any reservations? You were just like, hell yeah, let's go.
Yeah, I said, hey, let's go. Went and talked to...
And what about the job that you had?
So, yes, so when they give you these apprenticeships, you sign a contract to finish it with them. So I went in, I told them about the opportunity I had. Greg was a pretty well-known name because he was such a good motorsports
ambassador.
Yes, he was pretty much one of the best ones in South Africa at the time. So he was in the paper from time to time, and they said to me, okay, yeah, we'll give you a deferment for a year. And I never went back.
That deferment, still in effect. So there's photos, I'll have to see if I can dig them out, that Greg sent me when he was on the show, of you two at the airport. And you look like you're 14. You both look so young.
Yeah.
He's all towhead, and he's just got one like suitcase. He's like, yeah, that was when my parents dropped me off. Ian and I were headed over or whatever. And I'm like, man, kind of to your point, you talk about how hard it is to move to another country and live. And you guys you found that out, huh? So take me through what that was like to leave. And
so you get so excited about going, and then I found out about, you need visas for every country you go to, and you're most probably going to need 2 passports to juggle them back and forth just to get all. So that's the paperwork that already started at the end of 1991 was. I was like, man, where am I going? That I know so much stuff. Anyway, the excitement builds, and Greg was there in the off season and riding, and he was smoking everyone we went to at every practice track, and I was like, we're gonna kill these guys, we're ready. And yet I'd never ever seen where we were going.
And had you really followed Grand Prix motocross, or you
not
said
so
you were
much?
kind of looking at U.S. racing, but
South Africa was pretty much well covered by MXA and Dirt Rider. You could get those magazines, but there wasn't much coming from Europe. So I knew of Europe and the guys racing there at the time of Eric Kaboers, and I knew of Roger's story and all these other things, but I hadn't actually seen it that much. So
it was the same for me here. Cycle News would have the occasional article that guys sent over, and that's weeks later. And
yeah,
I don't know, it didn't feel connected. I think it's harder for young people to imagine what it was like without the internet, where you could just go Grand Prix results and there's 9 million articles and videos. Like,
exactly,
it seemed like another planet.
Yes. I mean, even MXA that we would get in South Africa, those had to be 6-7 months old already when you'd get them. It was outdated news, but to me it was today's news. So anyway, we get ready to go, and our families come to the airport. They drop us off, and it was still in the time when everyone could go to the gate.
Yeah.
Finally, we set off. We walk down the jet bridge. We get on the plane, and this plane takes off, and now my mind starts racing. I start thinking, this is for real. There's no turning back now. I'm out of here. And so we land in Zurich, and I remember clearly it was pretty bumpy coming in. I felt really nauseous and quite sick, and we land. And I was right near the back of the plane. They opened the door, the snow's blowing in. I'd never seen snow before.
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
What? Where are we going? And we get off the plane and we get on our next flight. We fly into Belgium, and it's raining, of course, and overcast and cold. And it stayed like that for the next 3 months. But so, you know, Greg takes us down to his little apartment. And it's me and him. I mean, that's it. You know, okay, what are we going to do for dinner? All right, we better go down to the grocery store and get something. We cruise down to the market, and everyone in the little town knows him now. You know, he's living in this tiny little town.
Oh, so he had already been there for a bit?
Yeah, he had been there a year.
Okay.
Yeah, in that little town. He first
went over with his dad, right?
Correct. His dad and his brother. Yeah.
Okay.
So now it was just me and him, and next morning we wake up and he takes me down to this apple farmer guy, and they open up this shed and pull out this little truck, and Greg says, okay, here's the directions, here's the map. You got to go down to the shop. It's in Holland. You know? Now I'm driving on the other side of the road. I've never even driven, and now I'm in this little truck, and I'm
How is your Dutch? Did you ever have to come around on that?
So I could get by because of Afrikaans, which we truly learned at school. So that helped.
Yeah, at least something.
Yeah. So I look at this map, and anyway, I drive over. I meet the team manager at that time, Jan de Groot, and I think his heart dropped when he saw me. He must probably like, they sent this guy.
Why?
You know, because I was just a young kid.
Yeah.
And he's probably like, really? You know, and I had the cheapest toolbox you could possibly buy, you know. I just had the processor, you know, like, and he must have been like, what the heck? Yeah. But we got going, and yeah.
And so was that Kawasaki's that year? What team?
That was actually Honda. Oh, so yeah, so Greg was Honda in 91 and 92 and 93.
And was that a pretty good program? I mean, at the time for...
You know, I didn't know.
Oh.
You know, I'd come...
You had nothing to compare it to, but did it end up being...
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And Jan, he was
he was brilliant.
Yeah. Did you learn a lot? You got to imagine you picked up a lot of stuff just from being around him, huh?
Yes. I mean, he, that first year with the 125, that was before Honda made they had changed their 250, but not the 125. So he took the 250 two-stroke rear end and he put it onto the 125.
Oh.
And we had to weld up a couple gussets and change a few things, we put the plastics on it, the gas tank and the seat and all of that from the 250 onto the 125, and he did the motor himself, and I think the bike was a rocket. You know, for me, it seemed like we had everything we needed, but when I look at what we have today and what we won with then, I don't think a guy could practice on today what we used to race on the season.
No, it was a different world.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the 90s here, you practiced on stock with a pipe and silencer.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll give you you know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not what it is now. These guys it's crazy now.
Yeah.
Full race bikes they're practicing on.
Exactly.
I guess that's cost of doing business at this point.
Yeah.
So at what point, was there a point in that first year? I remember Greg telling me you guys were kind of like melting down a little bit about missing home and just like, man, what are we doing? And, you know, it's cold. You're not used to cold, and the food's different, and it's a lot.
Yeah. The first few weeks, I was so homesick. It was crazy, but I was trying to hide it, you know, and I was, the race shop was in an old pig farm. So they had, I remember Jan, he was a tall guy and he couldn't even stand straight in that place. Like the roof was really close and it was tiny and kind of dingy, and I couldn't keep up with the other guys. There was a guy, his name was Terry, and he was the mechanic for Dave Strabos. Okay. Dave Strabos was a world champion, had finished second the year before, and Terry would build his bike like in a day, and I'd be so far behind, and I'd be panicking. I'd keep looking to try and keep up, you know, and I was just stressing out. And that was still in the time when You did your own suspension. You did your chassis. You changed your own tires. Luckily, Jan did the engines. I took them apart and cleaned them. He assembled them. So that was a big help for me. But man, I was like
deep end.
Deep in. I was struggling. And so anyway, we go to these first few races. We completely get smoked.
Oh, yeah?
This is in Belgium. Like I think one we got lapped. And I'm thinking, what? Like, we are so far out of it. But Greg kept saying, hey, the bike's getting better. I'm happy. And he was working, doing his routine, training hard. And finally, we load up our van to go to the first 3 Grand Prix. The first one was in Jerez, then Portugal, and then Italy. So it was a long road trip. And no flying for the rider then. He's next to me in the van, a van that you were lucky if the thing went 55 miles an hour. That was like down a mine shaft. The rest of the time you were like 50, 48. So we got this little van. We got everything loaded in there. We go and buy groceries for the 3 weeks, and we start driving. And our first trip from Belgium down to Spain is got to be about 12 or 1,300 miles. And when you go on that slot of 50, yeah, dude, you get my point. I think we had finished all the groceries and snacks by the time we got there. So, and then we get to the first Grand Prix, and we set everything up, and Greg wins.
He did? He won the first one?
He won his first Grand Prix, the first one we went to.
So, like, for you, and you guys had done some pre-races, probably with sand, I would guess, though, and he got beat pretty bad. And now you just won the Grand Prix. Like, what were you guys both saying? You had to both be just...
So that was the year 1992, and they had 3 motos. And they were 25 minutes plus 2 laps each. And I think he went... I can't remember the exact results, but he won one, and he was second and third in the other ones, but he got the overall. And I mean, we were like ecstatic.
Yeah.
And just couldn't believe it. But things quickly spiraled out of control.
Yeah.
So we leave there, and we drive to Portugal, and we set up camp and everything, and I take my bike apart, and it's still that time where I'm unfamiliar with stuff. I haven't done this a lot, so I'm trying to put everything so I know, okay, these 5 bolts go for the ignition cover, and we get everything sorted. Greg says, hey, you want to come check this thing out? We're close to where the beach was, so I go take a look for a few minutes, come back, and Jan kind of just wrapped everything up into a box and said, no, we're moving to another spot. Dude, my heart just sunk. I'm thinking, how am I ever going to get this thing back together again? And I think he did it to test me a little bit, and to see like if I could really take the pressure and if I really knew what the heck was going on and I wasn't just putting a puzzle together. Anyway, we move, and I'm just over it. I'm like, get me on a plane back home, And, but I get the bike together, we go to Portugal, and Portugal poured with rain. And, but he still did really well. I think we podiumed. So I think he was third and leading the world championship. And then from there, it was another huge drive.
Did you feel that pressure as a mechanic? You're like, not only am I trying to just remember how to rebuild this bike, my guy's leading the world championship right now.
Dude, I was in so deep I didn't even realize. Seriously, when I think back now, I think I had no clue.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe it was better.
Trial by fire. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe it was better. And then we head all the way to Italy, and yes, Italy was another good race. Did extremely well again. Sorry, I can't remember the result at the top of my head, but was also right up there, another podium, still leading. And but now I'm exhausted, I'm tired, and now we're heading back to Belgium, and we got I think there's a week off or 2 weeks off, and it's late at night. We leave, and Greg says to me, "Hey, you sure we got enough diesel?" And I said, "Yeah, we got enough." Not 10 minutes down the road on the freeway, we run out of diesel, and he's in the back reading his book. I still remember, and he says to me, I asked you, so you better get out and go find it, and I'm walking down the road, and I'm thinking, I hate this. I want to go home. I'm yelling at myself, and I'm thinking, now it's pitch black. It's 11 o'clock at night, and I don't even know where the heck I am. I'm walking down the road in the middle of Italy somewhere, and I see this tractor parked like right on the side of the road, and there's a fence, and I think, okay, I'm just going to climb over the fence and siphon some diesel. And I'm just getting ready to do what I'm not supposed to do, and this horn starts blowing. And I turn around, and it was actually Daryl Atkins. He was racing too. He was a New Zealander, and he had seen the van stuck on the side of the freeway. He had picked Greg up, and they'd come to look for me. I must have been about another 2 miles down the road. And we ended up going into town, getting diesel, and
Got you just before you committed a misdemeanor.
just before I committed a misdemeanor, just before I was going to walk to the airport. That's what I was telling myself. And actually, from there, that was pretty much the low, and then it started to get better.
It's hard to adapt to another culture and food, and like, you know, at that time, getting around Europe and all the carnes and the
Passports and everything, and the different money for every I mean, you'd go buy a sandwich in Italy, and they gave you a money was bigger than your fourth sheet of paper. Yeah.
So yeah, it was a challenge. Well, you know, like I always say, racers, especially back then, but even still, they get an education that you can't get in a school.
For sure.
And until you've tried to read a roadmap, you know, like on Atlas, and we didn't have GPS, it was like, okay, you know, got our passports and this, and we need different monies, and
yeah, it was a crazy time.
So that was kind of the lowest point for you, where you're like, wanted to throw in the towel.
Oh man, I wanted to throw in the towel. But it's funny, as soon as that horn blew, it was like I don't know. Oh, and then they were laughing, and they're like, hey, come on. And we took off, and I think he even had somebody else with him. I can't remember. Yeah. It just got so light right there. Just light as a mood. Yeah, then it changed, and yeah, we went from there.
That's funny. So how was your time, you know, just, you won 3 world titles with him there.
Yeah.
And beating Everts, like I don't know if you guys realize how impressive that was. You know, like you were beating really good people, and then putting a deal together to come here. I mean, take us through those years there. Was there any races or championships that were special to you, or kind of give me some highlights and lowlights?
Yeah, so like how I said that, you know, how you got lapped at one of those first races in the sand. Well, Jan, in the contract, Greg had to ride the Dutch Championship. And he actually won the Dutch Championship too that year in the 125, and the following year on the 250. But that was such a good platform for him to race, because at that time you used to have there were only 12 GPs, if I remember correctly, and there were 3 or 4 that were sand races. And if you couldn't race the sand, you just made it so much tougher on yourself to try and win the title.
And so it's different sand too, right? I mean,
yeah.
This isn't like Southwick sand or Florida sand.
It's like beach sand, but heavy, you know, because if you think of Holland, you know, 50% of that country is reclaimed land from the ocean. They have walls keeping the water out. So it's that heavy sand, and the water is just, I mean, you dig a few feet there and you'll hit water. So it's like really heavy and dense. You know, you've been there.
I've never ridden it,
luckily,
but I watch it and I just go, that's a different animal.
Yeah.
You can see it just suck the bike up, and those guys that are good.
Yeah.
It's an art form, man, watching them.
Exactly. And even today, all the guys who want to win end up moving up to Belgium or something to figure it out. You have to.
Yeah.
So Greg, he won the Dutch Championship, and then leading up to the final 2 rounds, he was pretty tight in the points with his teammate, Strabos, who was Dutch. And one of the last races was in Holland, just before we went to Japan. And the points were still pretty close. And there was all this talk about, okay, now we're going to see what happens here when we have this GP in the sand. And Greg won the GP in the sand. Strabos finished second. And we went to Japan, and he had a pretty healthy points lead. He didn't need much. But that's where when I was younger, I was also a bit of a moody bugger too. Luckily, my wife's helped me with that. But I used to get so mad with him, because once he won, he kind of just went on cruise control, you know? He's like, hey, I won the title, I'm done. And all the other races we went to was never that same effort. Like if we went to the Motocross of Nations, or if we went to a race in Paris, like Bercy or something. He was kind of
Just relaxed.
enjoying the moment, you know. And I was the guy that I want to win every time we go. And it took me a while to figure that out, but he needed that, you know. Greg
can only
was a different animal to me, you know.
Yeah, I think you can only sustain that intensity for periods of time, right?
Right.
And we see it over here when the series goes so long. Guys, RV, Ricky, they're just retiring early because they're like, man, I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm tired of being miserable.
Yeah, because it's a lot of work, and if you want to be good at anything, any sport, you have to be all in. There is no half.
No.
So all these guys that win or whatever, and you think, oh man, that guy's a little grumpy, or they there every day. They in the thick of it all day. They never stop thinking about it. That championship is on their mind. The points lead, not screwing it up, not crashing. Don't hurt your ankle. Don't do this. And yeah, you're right. So it's mentally a lot to handle.
Yeah. And I always found like I could do it in little bursts, but I couldn't manage that much intensity for that long. I would get, I don't know. I'd kind of just burn out, and then, I don't know. It's impressive to me that guys can just stay in it like that.
Yeah. So that's how he was. And so the end of the season, he kind of rolled out of it, and I would get frustrated. But then we came back the next year, which was 1993, same team, Honda, a massive pay increase for him and I. And now the trust from the team manager, I felt like he really felt like that was his first World Championship too, Jan.
Oh, was it?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he had never won. He had never had a rider that had won for him. So Greg was his first. So, that was...
You were his first title. Look at this. You're mad. You got your hands all over motocross history.
So, and then we go to the first race was in Italy. And that now we with all the big dogs, Robbie Herring. And
so you moved up now? This
moved up, yeah. So one year with Greg on the 125, moved to 250. And Robbie Herring, Donnie Schmidt, Bob Moore, Alex Puzov. There was a whole host of guys from all over the country, all over the.
Was that DeMaria too, or was he a little younger?
DeMaria stayed back, so we raced with him in 92. He was an awesome racer. Him and Pedro Tractor was another. Bollet. He was another good one. He was just before Frederick Vial, Tyler's dad. Yeah. So we moved up with all these guys.
So did you know Frederick?
Yes. I didn't personally know him, but we raced against him.
How funny is that?
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. Full 360, yeah. But so we go to this first race. Greg's happy with his bike again. Everything's good.
And the 93 Honda 250 is good, right? Yeah.
Porsche, yeah. Great bike. We have in the off season at a Dutch championship, we broke a crankshaft actually.
Oh.
And so Honda sent us a factory crank. They sent 2, and I think that's all Greg got. Like, we were kit suspension, not one titanium nut or bolt on any of these bikes. Just close to stock. Yeah.
So were the manufacturers not super engaged with the teams, or
Jan was like a team running from a dealership
out of a pig farm?
And yes, out of a pig. And Venco, which was the first sponsor we had, that was they painted ships.
Oh.
So that was the sponsor. And then when Venco fell away, they got JHK, and that stood for, I'm going to say the Dutch word, Jonker Houtconstructie, which meant it was the guy's name, Jonker, and then wood construction. So they built prefab roofs for houses.
Okay.
So that was our second sponsor. They were good.
I remember that JHK.
JHK. Yeah, that's what it was. And so we go to this race, 3-race format again this year. And first race he comes back, he finishes 3rd. And he tells me, dude, I can smoke these guys, but the brakes hitting the throttle housing, I can't stop down the hill. So I look, and sure enough, the adjustment screws just clipping the throttle housing. So I moved that away, and then he won the next 2 motors and won the overall, and was leading the 250 World Championship.
What the heck?
Yeah. So
I thought he had a year of, maybe it was the year he came over before where he struggled a little bit. I don't remember him coming out firing like.
So no, 1991. He struggled. 92, 93, 94 was world champion. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and then he went on to win a lot that year. That was his best season ever. He was
Dominated him.
Yeah, and he was so confident and so in everything. You could just see the way he cruised around the pits, with the girls and with the fights and with everything, and his long hair. Things were rolling his way,
Yeah.
And same for us. The bike was an awesome bike. He won the Dutch Championship too. Got to there, and then I don't know if I'm getting off balance here, but
you're doing this is kind of I kind of like to go through things chronologically. That's just how I like to do things. So you're doing perfect. I don't even have to talk.
So then he basically tells Jan, "Listen, I want to go to America. That's my goal."
This is after the second.
This is in 1993.
Okay.
So now America has their new superstar Jeremy McGrath. Both of them running Cine Solar gear. Do you remember that?
Do you remember that?
Yeah. So Greg gets in contact with Dave Arnold. Dave Arnold says, "Yeah, this looks pretty promising, but as you know, at that time, things took long. You didn't have a computer where you sent an email or so. It's like things took a while to get some information. So Greg tells Jan, "Hey, I'm moving on. Don't worry about me." Jan's trying to get something with Honda. Kawasaki approach him. I don't know about this. I only found out after. Kawasaki approach him. He takes on factory Kawasaki, which he's going to do for 1994.
Yeah.
And of course, he goes searching for a rider, and he wants the best rider now. And he's now this team that's won 2 titles, and so he gets Stefan Everts. Greg, we go to Japan. We meet with Dave Arnold, and Dave says to Greg, with the last Grand Prix was in Japan, and I remember Stanton, and then they used to have to come for that Grand Prix too. One of the American riders.
Yeah.
And we get there, and Dave says, "Hey, Honda said no. They said that you're winning in Europe, and it's not really costing them anything. You're riding for this private team. They want to leave you where you're at. You're doing a great job, and they're happy with it." So Greg goes to Jan and says, "Hey, Jan, this thing's not going to work out, And Jan goes, "I'm sorry.
I'm already signed up."
Yeah, I'm full." So we leave Japan and we fly back to South Africa to get visas and a couple other things and see family and everything. And he's pretty much panicking, Like, what am I going to do? I'm the world champion, and I don't have a ride. So the Sylvain Geboers, who now has lost Stefan Everts, gets in touch with Greg and tells Greg, "Okay, listen, I can do this for you, but it's all inclusive, gear and everything," which is when he switched to BFE, the helmet, the boots, everything. So he's like, "Man, I don't know." So he talks to them a bit longer, and obviously Sylvain and Roger go way back because they both raced against each other in the 60s and 70s and were the pioneers for Suzuki. And Sylvain, Greg says, "Listen, I want to do it, but my ultimate goal is I'd love to get to America. I've conquered what I wanted to do in Europe. I wanted to be world champion. I don't see how I can keep repeating the same thing. I want my next challenge." So Sylvain talks to Suzuki, and Suzuki say, "Okay, they will give him a ride in America for 1995. So Greg signs on the dotted line. We start with Suzuki in 94, and it's a struggle.
That bike's not great.
We struggle.
Yeah.
And we're getting
But factory help?
full factory. Like the trick is, but now I'm like in seventh heaven. I mean, we got titanium factory swing arms, but I quickly found out that lots of factory stuff means lots of testing and lots of getting lost.
Yeah.
And
It doesn't always necessarily work.
Yeah, and at this time they would send a suspension tech over there from Japan, and he'd spend a week with you, and then he'd leave, and the mechanic was responsible for suspension, settings, changing suspension, building the engine, doing the bike, cleaning the van. I mean, it was a lot.
Those were the days, like you mentioned, mechanics did everything.
Yeah.
It's so separated now. There's a suspension guy and a motor guy and
data guy.
So I don't want to knock on mechanics now. They still work hard, but it's just different.
Yeah. we didn't have as many races, and of course the bikes weren't as complicated.
Yeah.
But there were other things that were more complicated, like driving somewhere. You didn't just pull it up on Apple Maps or something. But
Dunlop's doing your tires for you now. They're pretty taken care of.
Yeah. So at that time you change your own tires, and so anyway, we start and we're struggling and we're not really making progress. And eventually his dad comes out to come and help, and we go testing in the south.
This is all preseason.
No, we in it now.
Oh, you're in it.
We're already racing.
And he's not doing great?
Yes. Stefan, Demaria, Talon Voland, another guy whose son I work with today, Talon was racing.
Right.
And they giving us the runaround. Like we fighting to get on the podium. And we go testing in Spain, and we change the linkage and a couple other things. And Greg's like, okay, this feels pretty good. And we head to France, to Ernie. I think the Motocross of Nations will be there this year. And he wins. Voland and Stefan were teammates. And Stefan crashed, and Voland hit his bike and broke the water pump off.
Oh,
so he
some points back.
He couldn't finish the moto. And Greg wins. We're back to 2-moto format. Greg wins both motos, actually jumps into the lead in the championship, and we start inching our way forward and start getting a nice healthy lead until a few rounds later at Lommel, where we run out of gas, 2 motos in a row.
Oh.
And we give our points lead. We leave there. We go there with 36 points in the lead because it was 20 points to win at that time. And we leave there 4 points in the hole. So that was
how did that not, surely you guys had done motos in the sand. What was the difference?
Was another thing where we should have done more. But I'll give you an example. Today, most dirt bikes have an 8 liter gas tank,
okay,
which means like 2 gallons, just over 2 gallons.
Just under.
His was 3 gallons, aluminum gas tank, but the motors were long, and Greg used a lot of throttle. He didn't use the clutch much, so like even if the bike was just pulling, he'd have the throttle, so the thing was sucking gas. Both motors he crashed in the start. Bike was yeah, and both motors he ran out of gas about 300 or 400 feet from the finish, but you couldn't even push it there.
In that sand?
No way. Yeah. So
wow.
Yeah, and then from one motor to the other, there was aluminum gas tank was the biggest one we had. His teammates had smaller gas tanks. They finished, and we try to blow it up with air a little bit and heat it, but it wasn't enough. Jeez. I nearly committed hurry-carry that day, dude. Gee.
Was that maybe like one of your biggest, as a mechanic, one of your biggest DNFs, probably?
Oh man, I wanted to put my head in the sand. That was
deep
bad
enough. Yeah, definitely done it.
Yeah, it was a tough day.
So, but then where did it go from there?
So then
he won that one too, right? That year.
Yes, but it kind of evened out. We went to Finland, and Stefan crashed and broke his collarbone. Oh. So he missed 2 motos, and we caught back up, and then we had a long break because our next race was in America at Budds Creek. And when we came back, I think it was 4 weeks after that finished race, Stefan was back on the bike, and actually Stefan won in Budds Creek.
So was that the first time you'd ever been to the U.S.?
No, I came in '93. We had a Grand Prix also there. Okay. Yeah, so that was my second time.
It was Budds both years?
Yeah, Budds both years. And when the first time I landed in America, I thought, this is exactly like in the movies. The cop is driving around with sheriff on the side and the big hat. Never seen anything like
Really?
Yeah. So I was like, man, it's exactly, because you always see the movies, but then and then all the big rigs, with the long hoods and all that.
I guess you never see that. You're right.
So all of a sudden,
well, what's the cop thing? You guys don't have like sheriffs, and
then they call in the police, and like they wear like a sailor's hat or something. I've never seen yeah. So
ours are a little Wild West looking though, the big brim hat on, right? Yeah. All right.
But anyway, Greg went on to fight through the championship, and he ended up winning by, I want to say it was maybe 9 points at the end of the
Over Stefan?
Over Stefan, yeah.
Which had to chap his ass a little bit.
Oh, for sure.
And then I imagine Jan was probably torn, like happy for Greg, but also like, man.
Yeah, Jan was really gracious. He came over right away at that race we were in Germany, and came and congratulated him, and yeah, he was cool.
That's awesome. So you'd been twice to the U.S. then. The idea of coming here, were you excited about that? Were you like, oh man, here we go again. I've just gotten used to this.
No, I was so excited.
Yeah.
Like you know America from every movie you see as a kid, yeah. You really feel like you know it before you even get there, And so
I guess it's hard for me to, as an American, I've lived here. It's normal to me, but
yeah.
I guess you're right. The movies you would watch.
Yeah. All American.
Yeah.
All the sitcoms, everything you watch that's worth watching is from the States, Well, especially at that, and when I was a kid.
Right.
I didn't watch anything that wasn't from here. So, so I felt like I already knew it, so I was ready to come. And
was there something about America, like a restaurant or a place that you were excited to go to?
I was excited to come to Southern California because of those magazines I'd had, seeing Anaheim and thinking of going to those places. That really excited me. And restaurants, not so much. The beach, yes.
Yeah.
I knew the beach was close by, and you'd seen all these things like Baywatch and all that. You're like, yeah,
where's Pamela Anderson?
Yeah, so
that's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about when you guys came over, and did you know Roger prior to that? Had he come over and worked with you guys much in 94 or?
Yeah, so 94, Sylvan bridged the gap there with Roger. I met Roger for the very first time in 93 in Majora. We had a benefit race down there, and they had like the riders meeting or something in a little church on top of the hill, and he came and sat next to us. So I knew exactly who he was. I'd seen him in magazines for so long. And
were you nervous?
I was telling Greg, hey, there's Roger, and or DeCoster, and Greg's like, yeah. He said, hey, Sylvan's trying to work. Oh no, that was before. Then a couple months later, in the middle of the 94 season, Greg told me, hey, that Sylvan and Suzuki and Roger are maybe working together to come back to Suzuki for the American team. Now, I didn't know anything about who ran the American team, who was in charge. I didn't really know anything about Suzuki America.
Because where was Roger prior to that? Was he still?
He was actually in Europe with Pepsi Honda, with Demaria.
Okay.
And with and they were also fighting for the title in that year. Was Demaria and Voland. They were on a Pepsi Honda team.
Was this fast?
Yeah, he was.
So there was a gap where Roger was U.S. Honda, and then he disappeared. So that's
yes. So he went 1 year and worked for the magazine, Motocross Action, and he did some magazine work. I want to say in 93, 94, he did that Europe Honda deal, and then end of 94, he joined back with Suzuki and became the team manager. And that's when I met. That's when he picked me up from the airport.
Okay.
Yeah.
So had you had conversations with him prior to that, really, or no?
Just basic conversations, like, and most probably he gave me that look like you sometimes.
Okay. I'm just glad he gives it to somebody else, not just me. So take me through the differences in like the culture shock of getting used to Europe versus coming here. Was this easier? Or was it just different again, and you're trying to figure out, here there's a lot of driving, right?
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, the culture is more similar to what we grew up with.
Here it is?
Like I would say, the sun, the climate, speaking one language, having one currency to travel around.
Yeah.
So a lot of that stuff was so much easier already. And even directions were really easy, You want to go to Florida, just take the 10 and drive for 3 days. So
it's more than that. Texas is 3 days.
So that kind of stuff was easier, but the distance was insane. Like I remember you would ask someone directions in California. Yep, it's just up the road. Well, just up the road means like 2 hours away, you know. And well, we don't be a while to get.
We don't talk. I don't know if this is how it is in South Africa or Europe, but here, how far is that? Oh, it's about 45 minutes. We don't tell you the distance. It's like, well, with traffic and it's about this. We tell you in time.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Is that weird for?
That is weird.
Yeah,
yeah. But you quickly learn why, you know. So
what time you going? 4:45.
Ooh, yeah.
That's going to be a 3-hour trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
okay, so you get here. That bike wasn't great, right? If I remember right, the stock Suzuki 450 in '95.
yeah, so we get here and then we had just stepped off a bike that was a
Works bike.
works bike, and they changed the frame and a lot of other things to help to make it more similar, they thought, to the flex of a Honda or something. So now you're governed by the production rule. Yes, it was a shock.
And Albie's trying to learn Supercross, which doesn't sound like he did a whole lot of that.
No. We had learned how to hang off the back in the sand.
Yeah.
Now we're trying to hang in the front, you know.
The complete opposite.
Yeah, so we were in left field.
Well, and I remember from those, 95, 6, 7, if I'm getting it right. Man, Albie was like the highlight reel of crashes. There's one in Florida. I think it was Florida. He cases something and then gets bucked off, and he's like, dude, he's going down the whole straightaway, like laying on the bike, and the crash took 150 yards to happen, but
he is the real rubber man, huh? He crashed like, I had so many handlebars ready in the truck,
Yeah,
I ought to say,
just a rack of them.
Yeah. We at that time we were using Pro Tape, and those things were pretty bulletproof, but he could bend them up like no tomorrow, like spaghetti noodles. But
so I want to know was that a struggle for you you'd won everywhere you went. You showed up to Europe and won your first Grand Prix, title, and then you came here, and it took some time. You're kind of beating your head against the wall for a bit. Was that tough for you?
Yes, it was tough for me, and especially for him. And I think any world champion who comes to America, you come from being the king to being a peasant. You really aren't anybody. And it's you actually don't get that reality check until you line up on the start gate and you see that you don't have what these other guys have.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of work to do. And there's no guarantee you're going to make it either. So, yeah, it was tough for both of us, because we had been like the kings for 3 years. I was just starting to feel like we're really invincible. And the next minute I realized that, hey, we just got to work to qualify for this thing, We got to get in.
Yeah.
And so it was an eye opener for both of us. But still, we were loving it. And when I think back now, man, things have come so far. Greg dislocated his shoulder at the first race in Orlando.
95.
Okay. I took the bike back to the box fan as quick as I could, ran out with him, and he was like this with his arm behind his back, and we're standing on the street waiting for the ambulance to come back because it had taken somebody out.
Oh no.
And now I think they won't even let you race if there's no ambulance there.
Yeah.
So we've made some huge steps when I think back now,
Yeah, the medical rig.
Oh,
what a game changer. You were there it was like, and sometimes it was Bodner, on the West Coast, but he just have a bag.
Yes.
And he's like, all right,
Yeah.
I'll pick you up and throw you in the ambulance if you're hurt.
Yeah. So now we've made huge gains. But
and you were also fighting that bike. So how did that development go? And were you guys?
Well, that's where I quickly learned how valuable Roger is.
Mm-hmm.
And he really got the ball rolling. Yes, things didn't happen as quick as we wanted to, but there were a lot of restraints on him that he couldn't get by at that time. Suzuki were more about participating than racing.
And where does that? I'm curious to get your take on this. Where does that culture come from? Is that Japanese brass, or is it American Suzuki management not really caring about racing? or is it trickle down from the top and kind of all the way? Because you see years where if upper management's into it, they'll fund it, and man, the results come, right? Or at least bike development, and you have better riders. And then there's years like, well, kind of where Suzuki's at right now, where they clearly don't have any passion for it. And so it's a complete afterthought.
It's a tough one, but when I look back in history, it's kind of their MO. You know, they dominated in the 70s. They were like the first. I think Roger was the first one to win on a Japanese brand on a 500 in 71. And then in the 80s, they got into a lawsuit with the full floater system, and they completely retracted from racing, and it went all the way back. Then in the late 90s, it kind of came back. They would try and get, like this is after the Bomber and all those guys. They try to get, I think Johnny rode for them, Johnny O'Mara a little bit, and they try to get a guy here or there. Then their lights program, they put a lot of money into that. They were very successful with it. From
Heyman and Yogi and Ferry. And
yes, exactly.
They had a lot of success in the mid-late 90s.
Yeah, exactly. And then, but the 250 just never got legs, and it was a struggle. But then when Pastrana came, I saw the shift again. They saw that they had somebody who could maybe potentially move this thing, and the ball really started rolling. And especially from our side with, Pro Circuit and Roger myself, we lived there, working on the bike, and
it just told me the stories.
Yeah, it was awesome, and we really made so much progress, and I learned so much stuff from those guys, just about tweaking things and pipes and shortening them and longing them and making the end cone steeper and shallower and different size carburetors and just all kinds of things we worked on, which was so cool. I was like a sponge back then. I just wanted to know and see, and it was nice because I didn't even have to write it down. I could just remember it because I loved it.
So it's coming to focus for me. Like, I always wondered how you got so good at what you do, and it's like, look at the people you rubbed up against for all these years: Jan, Mitch, Roger. I mean, of course you're going to be successful.
Yes.
If you have a learning mind and you have a passion for it, how do you not? Those are some three like heavy hitters.
Exactly. I had, they're awesome. And like I said, and Sylvain Gabours, he was another one.
Yeah.
And when I worked at Sylvain, there was an older guy, he was from Czechia, and his name was Jardo Pudil. And he was a mechanic at CZ for Roger. And this guy could make or do anything. And we couldn't speak the same language, but he was such a kind person, and he showed me so many things and taught me. And he was one of those people that was a real teacher. Like he had the passion and the time to show you how something really worked and what the benefit of it was. And
he did that without speaking the same language?
Yeah,
he would just kind of show you, and
like if you were working on a crankshaft or something, he'd go calm, and then he'd bring it over, and he'd disassemble it, show you, and he'd put a little bit of this on, and his secret sauce, and he was just a cool dude.
What was his name again?
Jardo Pudil, and he worked at CZ. He was one of the guys that originally made the first motocross bikes that they were winning with when it was Joel Robert and Roger and Sylvain. When they were there, he was the main guy. And I was lucky enough, he had retired and was helping Sylvain. But this guy had an old Renault that was from the 60s. And the one day I come to work on a Saturday, he's underneath the thing, gearbox comes out, next minute he's on the lathe, next minute I see a gear, he's made the gear. No drawing or anything, eh?
Just built it.
Put it back in the afternoon. He tells me, jump in the car. We go get, some fries from the friture, and just unbelievable. Like real mechanic.
That's crazy. It's interesting. We had Gunnar Lindstrom on the show last week.
Yeah.
You have to listen to it when you get a chance, because he talks about two-stroke technology and how it came out of World War II. It was them making small engines in the field, And he rattled off this book called Stealing Speed that he's reading. Just there's some really fascinating things that you'd get a kick out of.
Awesome.
Because again, he's another guy like Roger who's seen so many decades. Really, motocross from the start.
Well, you hit on something pretty cool there. Like after the war, there were so many bikes in Europe that they used to, communicate with and take letters from one side to the other. And all the roads were blown up. So these guys started riding on back roads. Well, then that would rain and they would get bumpy, and then guys started jumping, and it basically created this whole sport, of, this is cool, like off-road riding.
And didn't Roger's dad deliver mail during the war on a motorcycle?
I think he did. Yeah, I think he did.
Yeah. So that's wild. World War II started motocross.
Yeah, so it was definitely like
influential.
A big jump in the sport. Yeah.
Yeah.
So something so bad was so good for our sport there.
That's crazy. Okay. Well, we've jumped a bunch of spots here. So 95, 6, 7. I remember a race. It was 97 Orlando. Do you remember that night?
97 Orlando. I might have blocked it out of the memory.
Well, I can tell you your rider was in the hospital because he was with me. First heat race, Chad Pedersen was a good buddy of mine, and we were both riding East Coast that year.
Yeah.
He cases a triple, breaks his wrist or something. He goes to the hospital. I'm like, dang it. I take off in my heat, come out of the first turn. Barry Karsten jumps underneath me. I land right on top of him. I'm headed to the hospital. First 250 heat, Swingster does something, breaks his wrist, hospital. And mind you, I don't even know that. I'm just on my way to the hospital. And as I cruise in, they're wheeling me in. I'm like, Swampy, hey, And there's a couple other riders already in there from earlier in the day. Chad and I are in rooms next to each other. And I'd hear him go, hey, and I'd look out my door, and here comes another rider. Albie comes in, Swink comes in. There was like 8 of us. It was like a party at this ER in Orlando.
Actually, now that you said, I do remember.
I don't know what he did, but anyway, he was in the hospital with me. I just remember, I think almost funny.
I think he dislocated his shoulder again.
That sounds right.
I think he did it nearly every year we went.
That was his tradition in Orlando. Yeah. So how were those seasons? Things obviously came together later 90s, but those first few seasons, it seems like it was just a lot of struggle.
A lot of struggle.
Because you guys were toying with the right side up fork, right? What year was that?
Yeah, that was 96.
96.
Yeah. So,
which was cool. Mitch has one in his attic.
Yeah, 96 and 97, actually.
Okay.
Because remember, Jeremy came.
Yeah, that was 97. You're right.
Yeah. So, so Jeremy was the one quickly to figure out that this thing is not going to be a game changer in Supercross, and we need to, park it. And he got going with some forks that caused, I think, a little bit of an upheaval with the Loroccos at the time.
Oh.
And then finally, Greg got them. But I could already see then that even though we were in a shambles, things were starting to take shape a little bit. Like we were getting a better result here and there. There was new stuff coming.
Yeah.
Things were moving a bit.
Was that because of Jeremy, or was that happening even prior to 97?
Jeremy initially, they didn't do enough. But Jeremy was so last minute.
Yeah.
I remember Rog.
It's like a month before maybe, huh? I mean, it was late.
Rog called me in December of 96, late December. And Greg was still in South Africa, and he said, hey, we didn't have a race shop. Suzuki never had one. So the mechanics used to work from home, and all of them lived out of state except me. I lived in Corona with Greg. And he said, hey, can you have a bike ready for January 1st? I need to meet you in Marietta. I was like, what for? He said, bring everything you have, So I redo Greg's practice bike, get everything ready. He never told me, never said who it's for.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and put everything put it on a pickup truck, on Greg's pickup truck, I think. And we go down there, and someone comes with a box van. We meet at the Denny's. And when we get to Denny's, we're having our breakfast and coffee and stuff. And he finally tells me, we're gonna test with McGrath. And I start laughing. I'm like, yeah, right. There's no way. And he's like, no, that's where we're going. So we head over there, and
January 1st. So a week prior, basically.
We started. I think that year we started a week later. So it was
2 weeks.
Yes. So go ride. Jeremy decides, okay, he's going to do it. We don't have a race shop, so I believe White Seals built the bikes at Pro Circuit. And if you remember, Jeremy had a different graphics. He had Troy.
Mm-hmm.
Troy was in on the deal or something. Yeah, and they set the whole thing up, and we start, and it's a mess because we had 6 riders, 6 mechanics, 1 team manager, 1 suspension guy, 1 parts guy. So we were over our heads. And we actually had a semi, so we had a truck driver too. But there's no overview on anything, and things are getting lost.
That was the one. You correct me if you think I'm wrong here, but when it was separated with box fans, it was nice to have your freedom, but you also didn't have like that cohesiveness as a team. And so maybe sharing information, or you know what I mean? That
And
sometimes it would be like kind of secretive. If you found something that worked, it was like, don't tell them, we got this.
For sure. In box fans, there were six teams riding for Suzuki. 6 box fans, 6 teams. Yeah.
That's right.
No, but that's how it was. It was like each guy for himself. And then when you moved into the semi thing, it was a lot more open, and Kawasaki were already there, and Yamaha, of course. I think they were first. So Jeremy, he comes in, he starts riding, and we run into clutch problems. And Suzuki built these crazy clutches, things I still haven't seen to this day, like a clutch that's completely encased. So it's separated from all the oil from the engine. It runs on oil. Yeah, like some really cool stuff they build. But we can't really get ahead of it. And Jeremy gets a flat tire at Charlotte. After Roger asked White to put 2 rim locks in, the tire comes off. He retires from the race. John Dowd won that night in the rain. And in the end, Jeremy ends up losing the championship to Jeff Emig, who wins by a handful of points too, I believe. And I think then Jeremy checked out, and I think he already had made a deal with Yamaha. But we carried on going through the outdoors, and Suzuki were really pushing now and trying to make something happen. Now the work really started. They were coming up with new ideas, and I think things were getting better, but it was too late. Jeremy had decided to move on.
Well, so you can say what you want here or not interject anything, but Roger, who was our very first show, actually, 5 years ago, told a story, which he said he'd never told out loud before, that Wyatt had made some mistakes on that bike, and that Jeremy, actually, the test bike, he was comfortable with. And he'd get to the races and go, I don't know, the clutch, and it just doesn't feel like it's fast as the test bike.
Yeah, I mean...
And then when Skip came in, he said Skip opened the throttle up and looked in, and the slide wasn't opening all the way.
That is true. Mm-hmm. So this is the part that's embarrassing for all of us, because we're all there, huh? Mechanics, team manager, everybody. But Wyatt had come from Honda. Honda was on top for years and years and years. They had been incredible. So he liked Honda stuff. Yeah.
We all did that. I remember running throttle housing and cables and brakes.
So that's where it came from. So he put the throttle housing in, put the cable on. He wanted the Honda brake pads, all these different things. Well, when we went to a race and he actually didn't show up, Wyatt.
Lady troubles, I heard.
Yes. So Skip was there because it was in Budds Creek, and Skip was from there. His family's from there. So Skip says, I'll do it. So Skip takes he's looking at the bike, and he takes the crossbar off, and the first thing he notices is that, like, he says, something's wrong with the handlebars. And we're like, what? So he calls me over, and sure enough, there's 2 different height handlebar perches.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, I feel bad because it's like talking about somebody, but this is the truth. So Rog, we like, what the heck we're going to do? So we can't find the same size.
So they're cocked.
So we asked Jonathan, but small, like
yeah.
I think it was a half a millimeter or 1 millimeter off, but they're not the same. And what scared us was the bars breaking because you're pushing on an edge. Anyway, we asked Jonathan Beasley, who owns the place, if he knows a machinist, and he says, "Oh yeah, I got my friend down the street." So we cruise down the street. No word of a lie. We go to this Amish guy's house. So we're driving down the driveway, and it's like just buggy tracks with the grass like coming over the windshield, and I'm like, "Rog, where are we going?" And we get to this place, and Jonathan goes down to the little house, knocks on the door. The guy comes out all in his
Amish
and everything. Yeah, he's ready to roll. And he walks out and he cranks up this old engine outside with these belts. And the lathe he had was pre-World War One.
Come on.
It was old. And it had these belts in the roof that ran this old crank that ran down to actually run the mill itself, the milling machine. And he gets everything set up, and even like to center apart. Today, you just crank it and all the jaws close evenly and it centers itself. There was still separate. You turn this one, you turn that one. You got to center it, You had to manually center it. You couldn't self-center it. And I'm watching all of this stuff, and the floors do it.
What are you thinking at this point? Like, what are we doing here?
I'm thinking, this is like for the best rider. And, where are we? And so... Jeez, I can't believe it. But anyway, the guy does it, and he does an awesome job. And so I show him the caliper, and I show him in millimeters. I show him, hey, Roger might have showed him, hey, we want to cut off a half a millimeter. And the guy had never seen a digital caliper, and he's like, don't put that down here. Like he couldn't believe that you could put the measurement in millimeters, push the button, and it would switch to inches. He like, do it again. He could not believe it.
Wow.
So we showed him, and he cut the thing, worked out perfect, went back that night, put it on and everything. But Skip ended up helping. And then the next weekend we were in Michigan, and Skip was rebuilding the engine because we used to do the engines. And Skip's like, hey, how many bearings go on for the clutch actuator arm? We go 2. One in the bottom, one in the top.
There's only one.
And he says, hey, there's only one. And so then that made sense that the clutch actuator arm would move out of the way from the push rod. And I was so bummed.
Roger said, he goes, if we would have had that bike, if those mistakes weren't made, Jeremy wins that title with a round or two to spare. That's what he said.
Yeah, I mean,
not to take anything away from Jeff.
It's 20/20 hindsight.
Right.
It's easy to say now, but it is what it is. And
but what a crazy historical thing, right?
Yeah. So
how wild would it have been? He rides that bike 2 weeks before the opener and wins the title on it.
Yeah.
I mean, it should have happened.
Yeah, can you believe it? Like that. That's still when the contracts used to end December 31st. Now they all end in September 31st. But he couldn't do anything till his Honda deal was up.
Man.
And yeah, so it was different then. No one jumped the gun. They waited.
I don't want Wyatt Seals to think we're picking on him. He's always been an awesome dude.
Yeah.
I love Wyatt. If you're listening, sorry to bring it up again, Wyatt. It's just an interesting footnote in our sports history.
Hey, I've also made my fair share of mistakes.
We all have.
Yeah.
Wyatt talked me off the ledge when I was hyperventilating. I broke my femur. He was the first mechanic to me.
Oh, really?
And totally calmed me down. And yeah.
Yeah, you see, there you go.
Yeah, he's a great dude.
Cool.
Great dude. Women have ruined a lot of us, men pushed us into a lot of mistakes. Okay, so those first few years, as I talked about, you guys are, fighting the bike. Greg's trying to figure Supercross out. Did you ever go, man, what have we done here? Like, this was a mistake? Or did you ever have any moments of, I might not get through this, or, man.
I did.
I know you did. Well, you don't cover up just world title too.
Yeah.
Struggle bus.
Yeah, and flip for sure.
Yeah.
And I've, Greg and I are like brothers. We grew up from little kids together, and, you love the guy, and it was hard to watch, and I wanted it as much as him.
Yeah.
Like I really wanted it. And actually I could see myself getting in the way a little bit.
How so?
Because I wanted it so bad. I think it turned him off a little bit.
You were putting pressure on him.
Yeah.
Maybe
and then you do these stupid things like you do when you're a kid. You give them the silent treatment, and you do, just when I think back to that, I'm like, man, how immature. But those are mistakes I made. I got to live with them.
Yeah, and each rider's different, right? But you guys as managers, you're kind of like sports psychologists and daycare managers. I mean, there's a lot you got to do, and it has to cater to the rider. That's what I found anyway, as a rider and then as a former team manager. This guy needs to be treated this way, but this guy, I can't do, if I do that to him, it'll break him. So I have to treat him this way. This guy needs more positive encouragement. This guy wants to be screamed at, right?
Yes. It's,
but you learn that you do over time.
Yeah. And then your personality also comes into play, because if you're not that kind of a person that does that, it's hard to do.
Yeah.
Like you got to talk yourself into it,
Yeah.
But they are very, very different. They've come from different backgrounds, different upbringings, and they're young. Generally, when you get them, they're not sure how to test. Their emotions are like all over the place, and you got to try and give this guy, $500,000 and say, just stay calm and, do this. So you just like adding gasoline to the formula.
I know you're 20, but here's $500,000, and I'm going to need you to win races.
Yeah, and just have your folks stand on the side of the road. Like it's just out of control. Yeah,
I've never heard it put that way. That's funny. Okay, so you guys won your first national title, only one with him over here in '99.
Yes. Can I kick back 1 year?
Yeah, absolutely.
So 98, we get the bike pretty good, and we got Larry, Ward, Greg, and Pichon riding for us. We go to the first race, and Greg wins his first Supercross.
LA, yeah.
LA.
Was that the very first round, or was there 2 rounds in LA that year? I can't remember if that was 97 or 98. I think they had 2 rounds in LA.
It was the first round.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very first round of it.
Was it 97 or 98? 97. Greg won in 97, sorry, because 98 was Tortelli.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was the same year we had McGrath.
Okay.
So a good rider brings up the whole team. Like Greg ended up actually getting 5 Supercross podiums that season and finishing 5th in the championship.
It's a great year for him.
So incredible Supercross series. And then in 98, he ends up finishing 2nd in the outdoor championship, but that's when he met Amy. He's totally in love. First motor good, second motor not so hot. And then Greg was getting married to Amy at the end of the year. So I was still on a visa. So my visa status changed. If Greg got married to Amy and became American citizen, I couldn't be attached to him with a sports visa anymore.
Oh.
So Roger immediately came to me and he said to me, "Hey, we really need someone to do R&D at Suzuki, and I think you'd be the perfect guy, and the timing's right, and we can work on this visa for you." And I thought about it a lot. I talked to my wife. I prayed about it, and eventually I decided to do it. But it also caused another rift with Greg and I, because here he was on the verge of winning, and then I stepped away from.
But you were with him through 99.
No, 99 was Joey Maurer.
Joey Maurer,
yeah.
He was my mechanic for about 2 months.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he actually, as a person, a little bit difficult. As a mechanic, fantastic. Good mechanic.
Yeah, agreed.
Really good mechanic. So Greg ends up with Joey. I start working on the bikes. I move into Pro Circuit. I'm living there, constantly working with Mitch, growing, and our bike just really starts to take form. And not from me, but like from the time that's developed with it, with Mitch, and with we get a good guy from Showa. We're really making progress. I think at the first national that same in 99, I think Greg, I could have my years mixed up, sorry, but I think Greg, Larry, and Pichon went 1, 2, 3 at Glen Helen. So it was like starting to come, and And so that's when Greg and I split. So
But you're still working. We still see him.
Actually, in the big picture, I think it was a massive help, because now he had someone in the background always working on the bike, and he still had his mechanic and race day thing. Yeah. So in the big picture, it all worked, and like I said, me getting out of the way for that 99 season was maybe healthy for him too, to win his championship.
Because I'm sure he had pressure. Was feeling pressure, like he's responsible for you. You made this commitment to come with him, and he's kind of letting you down over these seasons. Maybe I have to ask him about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, that would be a question we'd have.
Or maybe he felt a little extra pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just because he knows how bad you want to win too, and you your whole life is dedicated to this.
But you can imagine, like, we two people living in another country, we were living together actually in the same home. Going to the races together, working and we'd been friends for so long. So there was a lot of pressure on the relationship.
Yeah.
And we needed to give each other space. We were growing up. He had a wife coming. I was married already, had my wife.
Oh, so I was going to ask, when did you marry Penny?
I married in 95.
How? When did you ever have time to go back and even?
So we got engaged in 94, just before I came here.
Okay.
My dad passed away right after that. And then I traveled here, and then she came to visit me in January, and we drove up to Seattle.
Were you dating before you left?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
We'd been dating since 93.
Okay.
And then, but like in all the years we dated, maybe we saw each other 2 months, because I was never there.
Yeah.
So she comes over. We go up to Seattle. On our way back, we go through Vegas, get married. We get back to Greg's place. We send her mom and dad the wedding. We faxed them the wedding
certificate.
Yeah. And I wasn't too popular for.
Oh, they were mad.
Yeah, but we did go home at the end of that year. Back to South Africa, and we had a wedding with our family and her family and everything. And I made amends.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so I think they love me.
Okay,
they do.
Yeah, you don't want that to linger. You said something I want to touch on. A rider like Jeremy comes over, and all of a sudden it elevates everybody. So why would you not? And I'm just saying this as a generalization. I'm not saying that you guys don't do this. You obviously put a lot of work into it, but what if you treated every year like you had a Jeremy, like you had the best guy in the sport? Let's work on this bike like we have the very best guy to ever do it racing for us. Is that the goal? Did you take anything away from that? We're like, man, look, when we really dug in, we thought we were working hard, but when we really worked hard, look what we did.
Yeah. Well, I would say that commitment comes from like multiple facets. Mm-hmm. One is you get whoever's behind you, if it's the factory in Japan or in Europe or whatever. When they have a big guy, they also have pride on the line. They want to make it happen. Then you need the financial backing to make that happen too. And then you need the rider. And the one cool thing about Supercross and motocross is the rider is a massive factor. Mm-hmm. And there's only a few of them that can really, really do it.
Yeah. And
everyone's striving to get that. We used to be 4 big factory teams years ago. It was Honda, Kawasaki, Suzuki, and Yamaha. Well, today we're bigger than that. So everyone's vying to get these few guys.
Yeah.
And that's the tough part, But I would say that most teams work like that. But sometimes you don't see the benefits of all the work because they don't have the rider to showcase what you've done.
I got you. And it does take all 3, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting. Okay. That LA Supercross win, that had to be huge for you guys, right? Like,
that win was most probably more to me than maybe one of the world titles.
Is that right?
Because it was so hard to get to. The other ones, we went there and they happened, and this one had been like multiple hospital tours, all these injuries. the bike changed, the team, you know, trying to get everything to grow and to get better. And Greg was loyal, you know, he stayed with Suzuki and yeah. So
yeah, I figured that had to be, and it's his only Supercross win?
Only Supercross win. Yeah. But if you think there's some great names out there that you would think would have won, for example, Pastrana, an unbelievable ride, but never won a 250 or 450 Supercross.
Crazy.
Yeah. So they to just win one
it's a short list.
Yes,
it's a very short list.
Yeah.
I don't know if people realize that if you just forget how many times they won, just make a list of people who've won.
Exactly.
It's not very long.
No.
Usually guys win just a lot. Like,
yeah,
we're talking about Eli. What's he at 51 now?
50, yeah.
51. I mean,
yeah.
And that's multiple seasons of he's the only winner.
Yeah.
You know, if you put them all together.
Yeah.
Okay, so talk about post 99. You know, that season was obviously huge for you. And were you going to a lot of the races as the technical director? Or?
Yeah, I went to most of the races, and then I could keep tabs on the. That's when we really started reporting a lot of information back to Japan about what we were doing each week, and trying to get the involvement more and more, and to use both sides to get better. And then we got Pastrana, who was this new guy that brought lots of energy and finances and all kinds of things into the team, you know, which was super cool at the time. And that ultimately led to, you know, him winning a couple championships, and then Brandon Jessamine winning, and that all leading into the time with the massive, maybe one of the biggest stories at that time of Ricky leaving Honda and coming to Suzuki. Yeah.
Yeah, and you'd heard that story before. You guys went through with Jeremy. That's another thing that has to be, when you talk about sort of those three legs that need to come together, one being finances, a guy like Roger can call Suzuki Japan and really have some influence with them. There's not a lot of people that can do that, right? Or same with Austria now, right? I imagine he can call over there and go, hey, we really need this in order to win.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Ricky was, you know, to me, I think he was like the perfect timing. Huh? He was at Kawasaki. I think Honda doubled his money to go to Honda. I think we nearly doubled his money to go to Suzuki. You know, that's his information. It's not for me to share, but yeah, his timing was impeccable.
Yeah, just dipped out right before the 2008 recession, right when everything was peaking. Yeah, man, he still owes me a pair of Doc Martens shoes he ruined. Guy made millions and millions. Can't give me a new boot. So, talk a little bit about Pastrana coming on. It's funny because his first pro race was Pasadena.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was racing that night. He and I had a little scrap for a while, and I ended up tipping over. But from the moment he hit the scene, like, he was just dynamite. Yeah, like media darling and flashy. Even if it was out of control, he'd make it look, you're just having fun watching him.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask, one, just what it was like having him on the team, because he's still just, to this day, he's like the friendliest. Dude hasn't changed a bit.
No.
Which is really rare.
Yeah.
So what was it like just having him on the team, and the hoopla that maybe even more than what Jeremy brought, potentially?
Yeah, I mean, I heard about this guy, you know, as an amateur. You know, they were telling us about these guys coming up, but we had a few of them that already came and kind of, it sounds harsh, but that had flopped. They didn't make it, you know. And so we heard about Travis, and you saw all these crazy things he was doing and these massive jumps. But the first time I met him, of course, he's you know, just so jolly, and he's thumbs up and hugging you when you don't even know the guy. And so I was like, I was a little suspicious, you know. I was like, man, this guy's maybe a little too friendly. But then you find out this is him.
It's him.
This is real.
Yeah.
This is exactly how he is. And he is smart, and he does go to sleep at 8 o'clock at night, and he does try hard, and he wants to just challenge himself in every direction.
He's almost like a cartoon character, but that's a
perfect way to describe it. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, just so lively. And so he comes, you know, like bouncing in there, and Rog takes to him, which is surprising, you know.
Is Roger just laugh at him? They're so opposite.
There's so many weird things. Like he would stay at Roger's house, you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he like had his room there, and that was like they were like they like polar opposites. You know?
Couldn't be more different.
Yeah, couldn't get more different. But Rog really enjoyed him, and I think he loved how much he put in and how much effort he put into racing. And I mean, in the beginning, he was really, really good. The problem was the wrecks were big too.
Yeah.
So his demise was that 2001 Outdoor Championship. He was leading. He crashed at Unadilla, was pretty fuzzy, got back on the bike, and I think he even went backwards for a second on the track and then made his way back. Then 2 weeks later, we went to Washougal. He crashed at Washougal, knocked himself out again, and what we know about concussions today is that you really do need time to recover. So that seemed to step backwards. And then the other side of it was he was such a household name, and freestyle was taking off in such a big way and paying so much money that we were not the major contributor in his financial contributions. You know, we were small compared to what he was getting somewhere else. So that started to trump us. And that's all.
I wanted to ask you about this specifically because, you know, there was all of this talk when he first came in and he was doing X Games and a few things, and you're like, man, that's pretty crazy. Like, this kid's got a racing future. I can't believe he's risking it on this. And at the time, you know, no one had ever done what he's doing, so that made sense. In hindsight, like you look now, you go, wow, yeah, what he did, it was the right path for him. You know, he's a bigger name now than Ricky, right? Righty. I mean,
well, for sure, lucky.
But what was that like for you guys? And I imagine you and Roger are pulling your hair out when he goes to do these things.
Well, Roger actually called it at Millville that same year. He was leading and he just basically pulled off. He was fighting with Fonseca, I think, at that time.
01?
01, pulled off, came down the start straight and went back to the truck. And Rog told me, I remember, because, you know, you got all your hopes in this guy. You want to win the title. I mean, we were 50 points in the lead, and now it was evaporating. And I think now we were behind, and you're like, what's it going to take to get him back? Because all you think about is we got to win this championship. You don't see this big picture that he's looking at. You know, you just see your little picture. And Rog said, unfortunately, this is the beginning of the end. When you quit, the next time it'll be easier, and the next time it'll be easier, and the next time it'll be easier. And he's right.
Mm-hmm.
And Travis had things where he could go to, I believe, and make the same amount of money on that one weekend doing whatever it was, and he could for a whole year of racing. So it was hard to, you know, and you're right. Like he had a big decision to make himself too, racing career or this. And
he points to that crash up at Castillo Ranch as sort of the end for him. Remember when he tried jumping over that fence and jumped off and blew his knee out? And he told us, you know, he was getting a lot of people going, man, you got to quit that crap and just focus on racing. This is, you know, and he did. He said for a season or two, and I'll mix up the years, maybe 01. No.
Was 252 when he was riding 250 two-strokes, yeah. Because remember, he was like so competitive with Ricky in that one race where it was at Indy.
Yeah.
Where Ricky bumped him in the tunnel. I mean, they stood out like you couldn't even hear the bikes anymore. Yeah, it was crazy.
But he says when he did that, he trained his butt off. He focused on just racing. He said he did worse. He rode worse. The results were worse.
That's true. Yeah, it's true. Because it's not him, you know? Yeah.
He's trying to put a round peg in a square hole. He's a bird, man. You got to let him fly.
Exactly.
But I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall with you and Roger, and he just, you know, having a conversation about, I'm going to Madrid to do X Fighters, and, you know, I'm he could see Roger going, all right.
He was really cool, actually. The one race was one of the ones in San Francisco, and to try and include us, to try and get us in. He was a smart kid, you know. He told Roger, can I do the X Games up there? You know, so Roger says, you can't launch your bike into the ocean. You know, if we send you with a factory bike. He's like, okay, I promise, I won't put it in the ocean. So we built a bike, and then he says to me, Was there
already rumblings about him doing that, or why would Roger say that?
Because we knew he was going to go. Okay. We knew we couldn't compete. If you said no, he's going to go anyway, you know.
But he had said he was going to jump into the bay?
No, that was the year before. I think he jumped into the bay. Okay. So it's like, hey, don't jump into the bay. You know, don't do what you did. I said, yeah. So we built this bike. We built some grab handles on it for everything. And I just started that position there. I had been there a few years, and he went up there. And I remember the guy wrote me a nice check for going up there that weekend.
Travis did?
Travis did. And he got my wife and I an awesome hotel up there too. And we had a good time. I mean, what's it take, 30 seconds to do their run or something? It's nothing to it.
It's an nice race.
Yeah, Flip, you do a practice and he comes back. How was my run? Everything looked good to me.
My bike's not at the bottom of the bay. We're good.
Yeah, so he was a cool kid, but he tried for a time to get us to go with it, you know.
Yeah.
But Roger's like, no. When you're on a dirt bike, racing is like behind the start line. When that thing, when the gate falls, you race till you see the checkered. You know, it's not about. Because there were a couple races where, I think it was Indy also. Travis did some kind of freestyle jump and crashed on the parade lap.
Wasn't that his first Supercross?
First Supercross.
Yeah, I think he crashed on the parade lap.
Yeah, and I was standing next to Roger, and I turned my radio off because I didn't want to listen to the whole story. You know, getting yelled at. But yeah, he
probably stressed you guys out a bit, huh? But it's hard. You just gotta you love him. You just have to
say if we called him now, he would answer the phone.
Totally.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't see people that become as famous as he's gotten. Still, like he's still doing things.
He's good at everything.
I know, and he just hasn't changed. It's just really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so take me through the following season. So what about Wyndham when he was there?
Super nice.
Great dude.
I loved it. I loved going out to his property that he had. That was the first time I'd ever gone to someone's property that had a Supercross track and an outdoor track and an aeroplane, and I was like, man, this is cool, you know?
Yeah.
And I really liked Ali Seymour.
Yeah.
You know, he's a mechanic, and yeah, we drove out there many times in the box van to go testing in Mississippi out there. Just super, super nice guy. But he was like those, we get them still to this day. They're super talented, and they're just missing a little bit of the work side. You know, Kevin unfortunately grew up in the same era as Ricky, so it was always going to be difficult for him. Flip, like look what Ricky did, you know. So, but I loved it. Then he got hurt. He broke his femur, I believe it was at Atlanta, and then he checked out, and we didn't hear from him anymore.
Sounds like he went through some pretty rough times.
Yes, and I never really dug too deep into that, but I still see him today. He comes around every once in a while, and he's the same old Kevin I remember. Yeah. Just a cool dude.
He's killing it too with his gyms.
Yeah.
I think he's making more now than he was racing.
Most probably.
So he's doing something right. Was Ryan Huffman on the team around that window too?
Yeah. Ryan Huffman was in there. I'm trying to think what year. Yeah, he was in there.
I can't put the years together either.
I want to say like 03, 02, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, and you guys had Renard for a minute. Was he on he would have been 98 Primal.
Remember Renard as Primal. Yeah.
That's right. But then he came to the factory team, the 250 team, at that point.
No.
Robbie? He was not on the 250 team?
I don't think so.
Oh, maybe I'm missing that then.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to go through some of the guys.
Sorry. I'm getting 254 stroke and 252 stroke me off. Yes, he was on the 252.
Yeah, he's on the 252 stroke,
yes,
right?
Of course he was.
Maybe with Larry and...
Yes.
Is that one?
Yes, he was.
Okay.
Yeah.
What a talented guy. You guys had a lot of talent come through.
Super talented. Yeah, really talented.
Robbie could make, when he was on, when his shoulder wasn't popping out, which was always his problem, is his shoulders. Holy cow.
Yeah, I remember he beat Ricky once or twice straight up.
Yeah.
One time was at Unadilla. That's why Ricky hated Unadilla so much.
Yeah, well, he passed him and gave him, just put it to him.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't do that.
Yeah.
Who else did you guys have through those years? Tortelli?
Yeah.
And there's another guy who so fast and just injuries or one thing after another, huh?
Yeah, he was like on the same trajectory as Greg. You know, he was super fast outdoor, but had to get through Supercross to get there.
Yeah.
And that was always his struggle too, was to get there. And this time Tortelli came, was the transition from people riding four strokes in the 250 class to potentially going to race them. And that was a big challenge for a lot of those riders at that time to develop the bikes. You know, and we used him a lot to develop that first
stroke.
Yes, to get ready for Ricky to race, you know. I mean, those things were beasts in the beginning.
Yeah, and it's like when they went bad, it went bad quick.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. They were scary a little bit.
Yeah, engine failure with stuff and bogging, and there were some serious challenges.
Yeah. You guys had Roncada, Hamlin, Nick Way. You guys had a lot of these.
So Hamlin and Nick Way came in when we lost Wyndham and I believe
Travis too.
Wyndham and Travis. They both got hurt, and we needed somebody, and we took Nick on and Hamlin, and Hamlin actually did a pretty good job for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both of them had some decent rides.
Yeah, they did pretty good. But it was a tough time. You know, we had a pretty good bike and just struggling with trying to get results and keeping riders healthy.
So did you find that your bikes got a lot better when Travis came, that 2001? Because for me, I loved the 99 2000 model, just the chassis and the way it worked. And then with the 01, I could never get as comfortable on it.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I liked them all the way from 99 all the way to 2005. They were super competitive. The engine was strong.
Yeah.
We had one of Roger's old buddies in Belgium doing the crankshafts for us.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, we had a good crank. And then of course Mitch doing the headwork and the porting of the cylinders and stuff. The bike was really good. Yeah, it was a good bike.
They looked good.
Yeah.
So what year then did you guys go? Ricky came on in 05, right?
Yeah, so of course that negotiation period started in end of Supercross in 04.
Okay.
So remember Ricky had hurt his knee.
Mm-hmm.
And so he wasn't racing Supercross. And from what I've heard, I wasn't directly involved with the contract negotiations. They were still all Roger. You know, he's trained me up over the years, but he would give me just a little bit as I needed it. So the contract stuff came much later. But with Ricky, he looped me in a lot earlier than he did with McGrath. You know, I knew right at the beginning.
He didn't call you January 1st?
Yeah. He's like, no. So with Ricky, we hear that he's interested in, and it started at Daytona.
Okay.
So Travis rode Daytona, and Ricky called Roger and said, hey, I watched that bike. It looks good. You know, he looks like he can ride it well, looks powerful, looks like it handles pretty good. And Roger thought he was bluffing at first, you know, Ricky. And Ricky said, hey, I've reached out to Honda, but, you know, they're not ready yet. Can you come up with something? So, I mean, we went full steam. You know, we went to Mel Harris, who was running Suzuki at the time. He went up to, of course, to Japan. And, they got the green light to do it. And I don't...
Was it like a whatever it takes, or was it here's your budget?
No, I think that was the first year I ever saw... Maybe I can put it this way, no budget. Whatever you need, you will do it.
So, I mean, it had been a while since they won. I'm trying to think, who was the previous champion?
Greg was the outdoor, but
Supercross Barnett?
Yes, 18 years before that. Yep. Yeah, it's been a long time. So we had won a few Supercrosses in there with Larry Ward and a couple other guys, but we were not competitive to win a title.
Right.
You know, Travis had shown the thing was capable of winning. Wyndham had all these guys, you know, but we couldn't get it for all 16 rounds. We couldn't get it, or 15 at the time. We just couldn't get it to the finish line.
Well, and you're dealing with Carmichael and Reed, and you know.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's only so many guys who can in.
Yeah.
You didn't have one of them.
So eventually, we go to Detroit. That was one of the last races, and Roger goes up with Mel Harrison and they sign the thing in some way. And this is how fast news travels. Roger says he gets in the elevator, like 10 minutes. He hasn't talked to anyone. He's come out of this room. He's in there, and someone says, "Hey, congrats on signing Ricky."
What?
He's like,
I just left the room.
yeah, he's telling me who. I wasn't there either. You know, he told me later that night. He's like, you wouldn't believe it. 10 minutes after. And this news travels fast.
Yeah. And that's pre social media even.
Yeah.
So that's really impressive.
So then we go into the outdoors. Ricky, I think, won every moto on a Honda.
Yep.
Yeah, he's completely dominates.
So 450 though, where were you guys at in your 450 development at that point? Because he came over and rode the 2-stroke, right?
Yeah.
Indoor and out the first year?
We gave him both. We rode a 250 and a 4-stroke, and he said, no, the 250 is good enough to win Supercross. That's what he wants. But the 4-stroke needs some work, and we need to get it ready for the Nationals. So we started working on that with Tortelli, and even riding Supercross with him, and we put him on the 2-stroke, and needless to say, he was really good. And you had to be with James Stewart and Chad Reed in their prime. You had to be on point.
Yeah.
And the bike was, it was a great bike.
Yeah.
It was really.
It looked like it.
It was.
Because even when Reed came, when other guys got on it, it was like, to me, Reed on that Suzuki 2-stroke, that was the best he ever looked, in my opinion, in Supercross. He was good on that Yamaha, but on something about that Suzuki, the way it cornered, he could really ride that.
It was awesome bike. And so Ricky ends up, I remember him going to the first race, and we go to, the first one we did was the US Open in Vegas, in that little arena track. First night, I think Chad might have won.
This would have been 04, right?
4.
Gosh.
I can't remember. But he comes back and he's happy. He's like, oh, we got to tweak a few things. Second night, we break the clutch.
Oh.
And Jeannie Carmichael, that's when I first got how important this keep this lady happy is. And she says to me, things happen. I understand it, but it better never happen again. And freaking I sent an email to Jeff and I said, hey, next time this lady comes to talk to me, you're going to stand next to me or we're never going to have a problem again.
Yeah.
And we quickly figured out what was wrong with the clutch, and we got that sorted out. He went through his boot camp, which was unbelievable. You basically never even heard from him. And when he came back, he was half the size of when he left, and ready to go. I mean, was he with Alden? He was with Alden. He was with Alden. Yeah, he had like a jockey. You just got to hold him back. He was so ready to go. We go to the first race. All the big hunchers from Japan come. And
is that the mud race?
And Ricky gets a whole shot, and I think he wrecks. And he can't get back on the bike. It's so muddy. And he has to kind of go backwards a little bit on the track, and he finishes third. And after the race, Roger and I get reamed from this guy from Japan about how we didn't control him, and we should have told him to do this, and we had it in the bag, and Suzuki hasn't won for so long. And
who is this guy?
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but a good hour. And all the Japanese guys are just standing with their head down, just, they don't say a word. They just take it like head on.
Fall on the sword.
Yeah. So Roger basically in the end gives this guy a piece of his mind and says,
does he?
Yeah. And so things settle down. We go to our next race. I want to say it was Phoenix.
That sounds
right. It was Phoenix, yeah. And he wins. And I'll never forget Ricky walking out of there saying, I'm normally good for 5, dude. 5 in a row. I was like, I mean, we were on cloud nine. So he wins the race. He's leading the championship.
Did you guys make a call to that Japanese guy?
No, he was there.
Oh, he was there.
Yeah. A lot quieter this week.
Not as much to...
Yeah. And, and then he, true as can be, Ricky ends up
5 in a row?
5 in a row. And really getting a nice big gap. And James unfortunately got hurt in Phoenix. It was Phoenix, because James broke his arm or something in Phoenix in practice.
Okay.
Yeah, he was already fast and we were nervous. So James was out. So then it was a Ricky, Chad, Wyndham, Villeman show to the end. Yeah.
Yeah, he was...
And I'm sure I'm missing a couple other riders.
Of course.
Yeah.
So what were the biggest challenges getting that 250 was money? What were the challenges getting that 450 working right?
Yeah, 450 was...
Because he wanted to ride it outdoors, you said.
So 450 was a lot of work, and man, we got into some big battles there too with Yoshimura at the time. You know, I remember Ricky saying, "Hey, I just want to be able to open the throttle full. I don't want the thing to take off. I don't need a lot of power. I need it to carburate good. I need it not to kick me in the butt, and I need power that I can manage." So we talked to the guys at Yosh, and they say, okay, well, they're going to be ready with a pipe, and we go to the first test. We did it on the off weekend in Tallahassee at his place, and he rides the bike, and he says, "No, the thing's just got too much power. Like I can't just open the throttle, you know, it's taking off on me." And we go talk to the Yosh guys, and they're like, "Well, we only brought one pipe. You'll have to do it with a cam." So we mess around with a cam and stuff, but we can't really change the character of the engine. So we get back, and we have a huge meeting with the Yosh guys and with Suzuki. Ends up blowing up, and we go to Mitch.
Oh.
Yeah. So
I guess I remember
we now working at Suzuki, where the race shop is at Yoshimura, and using Pro Circuit. We were not popular by no means. But
you know, your star rider gives them a task, and they just go, "Oh, we just brought one pipe." I mean, that's not acceptable.
But this is how it shows how when you have one of these guys and you're all in, people that will be willing to do anything.
Yeah.
So we go to Mitch. He starts working on some pipes for us. I was actually doing some of the head work then myself. We got some different cams made up. Went to the first test. I think Mitch had like 14 pipe combinations, to try. He had them, so many. And we tested for 2 days up at Comp Edge.
Okay. Yeah.
And at the end, Ricky's like, "Yep, I'm good to go." You know, and went back to Supercross for the last few rounds, jumped on that thing for the outdoors, and he won every race but one, where he crashed at Southwick.
In 05?
In 05, and Chad beat him. Yeah.
He was...
So like, we didn't have the undefeated season like Honda had twice or 3 times, I think.
Twice with Ricky.
But he lost one moto. Yeah.
Oh, not just races, one moto.
One moto. Yeah.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
It's not too bad.
And we had James to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like he got handed to you.
So yeah, in 06 it was even tougher with James, because then James was also on a 4-stroke, because in that 05 season James was on a 2-stroke.
Yeah.
So
and he was complaining, he was getting...
Yeah, so in 06 it was a nail biter. Every race was like just full on war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to just see what you think. Like, this era of Suzuki was really, really strong.
Yes.
Ricky comes in, crushes it, right? Yeah. And then you have Reed that followed, Stewart, Dungey. I mean, I don't know what...
Stewart was after Dungey.
Okay.
Yeah, Stewart was after. So that's when I'd already actually left.
Okay. But everything you developed...
Well, even what Suzuki had, they were like that bike package. I think it's nearly still the same today.
I know. It's finally... it's still winning a race.
Yeah.
But, man, I mean, you can almost compare this to that mid-'80s with Honda.
Yeah, it was amazing.
You guys won so much, and I don't know if, I it certainly doesn't get that credit in the record books. Like when people talk about it, they always talk about, oh, Honda in the 80s, they were on HRC, right? But go back and look at the numbers. I'll bet you guys won more races.
It was a good time. It was a really, really good time. It was fun. Amazing. But the McGrath thing set us back 5 years on the trajectory with this. When I see what we did at KTM, and if you have the backing and everyone involved, how much quicker you can move that. But with McGrath losing and trying to get the motivation back and all that, I would say that was like a 5 year.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Block crash.
Yeah, that's great.
That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like they took their swing and missed, even though really you didn't, but you just didn't hit your target, right, the first time. But
right.
To your point, though, you got to have all three things.
Yeah.
And then you didn't really have the right rider for a while.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about the differences between those guys. RC, Reed, Dungey. How did you interact with those guys differently?
RC was the first guy that we had on the team that I was actually like a super fan of, you know?
Yeah.
He was just so good. Like you never even worried about, like you went to the race thinking you're going to win, you know? It's actually...
It was the most confident you'd ever been?
Yes. Like, absolutely. And they definitely, it inflates your ego, you know, maybe too much, but he was just, man, he was incredible.
Yeah.
You know, he showed up at every race and raced to win. And there were once or twice we got a fourth place. Once we ran into a boat or something, and it was like the world ended, man. I'm telling you. Fourth place was like,
yeah,
like I should retire. I'm useless.
He would say that?
Like he would be so hard on himself. It was crazy. It's so crazy. You know, when you think of Ricky, like he rode motocross for 10 years. There's 12 races per season. That's 10 times 12 is 124, correct?
Mm-hmm.
He has 101 victories.
Yeah, his outdoor numbers are absurd.
Like that's, and then if you add the second and third places, I think it brings you all the way up to like 115 or 118 or something, like something insane.
Yeah. No, it's wild. There's no, I don't know that we'll ever have anybody like him again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know Jeremy gets some heartburn when everybody calls him the GOAT, but if you're tying everything together, it's really, you can't beat his numbers.
Yeah, it's true. Jeremy was amazing in Supercross, and for sure he's the GOAT of Supercross.
Better, yeah, for sure.
But all around,
it's hard to argue.
No one holds a candle yet to Ricky.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's taking nothing away from Jeremy. He was amazing to watch in Supercross.
Yeah.
Had to be fun to watch him on your bike too,
Jeremy?
in Supercross.
Actually, now that I think of it, I was also pretty much, I was a super fan then too. So, yeah. But then I was a mechanic working for another rider in a time where we were so underwater. You didn't really get to experience it. Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't get to enjoy it like you would now. As
like when I was with Ricky, we were ready. We were ready for that.
Yeah. Man. And so what would you say, just kind of touching off on Suzuki one last time here, what do you think's going on there? Do you think they are going to recover? Well, is everything just cyclical and they're on a down cycle right now, or do we have the chance of them going away? In your opinion, I mean.
In my opinion, it's a big company. I think in India, they're the number one car sales group there is. And India has over 1 billion people. So they have the resources, the finances to make it go. But it seems like they push it and then retract. Push it and then retract. So who knows? They could easily come and say, okay, are we back in? And let's go. And I'm sure they'd be competitive. If you look at their factory bikes over the years, like when Greg was racing them and the parts they made, and when Roger was racing them, they are innovators. They make cool stuff. They can be competitive. You see them in MotoGP when they step in, step out. I don't understand their their philosophy, but it's like it's just a part-time thing.
They did the same thing with MotoGP, didn't they?
Yeah.
They won and then pulled out of that.
Yep.
Yeah. I'd like to sit down and have a sake with one of those guys and find out what's going on.
Yeah, let me know.
What about those titanium cone pipes? You were there when we had those, yeah?
Beautiful, hey. Yeah, they
Weighed
I just wanted to run them even though they weren't as good. Like, come on, you got to run. Yeah,
a little piece of dirt hits it and it tacos in.
It was amazing. Beautiful stuff, yeah.
Beautiful. The welds, like,
yeah.
Yeah, they can make cool stuff, there's no doubt. And their marine is actually quite large, too.
Exactly.
What about, so some of the other guys you had there, Ivan Tedesco.
Yeah, Ivan, Alessi.
Alessi, yeah. How was Alessi?
Alessi, you know, and now that I know Tony as not having his son.
He's a great team manager when he's not managing Mike.
Dude, amazing.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I think when he manages Mike, it's like the cloud comes over or something.
He just gets emotionally invested, and that's no good.
But I understand it because I have kids of my own today.
Yeah.
You know, so it makes more sense to me.
Yeah. It is funny though, right? Like he was always, when he was with Mike, you're like, dude, this guy needs to just chill.
Yeah.
But with Moto Concepts or whatever, he's great.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I've watched him and I've ridden that bike. I'm like, he's doing a good job. He's doing a really good job.
They do a good job.
Yeah.
They're a competitive team. They're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but who knows if it was him or Mike or I don't know.
Was it Mike? Maybe Mike was on a KTM when this happened. When he crashed a Redbud, was that with you guys?
Yes, it was Suzuki.
That was one of the most horrific things I've ever seen.
Yeah. That was a bad crash.
Yeah, and he wasn't even that hurt, I guess.
No, luckily. Yeah, luckily he got knocked out because he was, I think then you become quite limp, you know, and you're not as stiff and that's when I think you can get hurt. But yeah, because a couple guys went over him.
Oh yeah.
He was okay.
Like, I get pumped up on my YouTube feed not ago, and it just makes you sick to your stomach.
Yeah.
If I crash that bad, I'm gonna just like hit my head. So
And then Tedesco, he was awesome, but at that time with Ricky, he was really overshadowed. You know, Ricky was so. The results were always there, and Tedesco did great. I mean, I remember the night Ricky's shock spring broke. I want to say it was New Orleans, and Ivan was leading that race for a long time, and James passed him right near the end, and I think he podiumed that night on the 4-stroke. But I really like Ivan, cool guy.
Super good dude, yeah. He's good too.
Yeah, was a really good rider.
Another one, the 2-time 250 champion, no 450 wins.
Yeah. There's a lot of them.
Lower list.
Yeah.
Who else? I'm trying to think of who else you had. What about...
And Reedy was a short-lived thing, was only 09.
Yeah.
Amazing season for us. He won... He was competitive in Supercross all the way through. He led it all the way to Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
Changed.
And that's the bike. I was thinking the 250 2-stroke. Yeah. It was that 450. He looked so good on that.
That was the first. That was really the first fuel-injected bike. It was an awesome bike. That's where, you know, there was a big step in our sport. I feel fuel injection, like for making things safer. Was it?
Yeah. Well, you remember it. You know, in the carburetor days, there was always, and in fact, I think Reedy on a Yamaha. At Detroit?
Yes, you're right.
He heated himself. Yeah.
Oh, not lung. Yeah, punctured a lung.
And even 125 days, like people bogging and little farts off the jumps.
Exactly.
Like
you had to be so on top of it. You had to be so ready with the clutch and the whatever because, but yeah, so that was the fuel injected bike. Ricky did the original development work on that. That was a fun project, changing from carburetor to fuel injection. I was involved right in the beginning with Japan with that. It was really a lot of fun.
And another thing, Japan or Suzuki first to market with that.
Yeah. First to win a Supercross title on a 454 stroke, and first to win on a fuel injected bike. Yeah.
Tell me about. I wanted to ask about Dungey when he was on the 250 and got beat by Lawrence that year. What were you guys saying? You could see that Jason Lawrence was just messing with his head, screaming at him and banging on the doghouse box. You know, just juvenile stuff, but it seemed like it kind of worked.
Yeah, it did work. And
what was going on behind the scenes there?
And that's another place I really like Roger's outlook. Like he never really got involved in it, you know. Oh no, he wasn't. You can't go whining about it. We used to complain about it and say, hey, this is BS. But Ryan needed to grow from it, which he did.
He did.
And it made him better. I'm sure there's years later when he had stiff competition where he could handle that, so Jason in a way helped him.
Mm-hmm.
But
that would be a great question for Ryan
but it's so close to helping or to derailing, because Jason Lawrence, he was a handful. Like look at even Villapoto and him got into Elias fisticuffs that they were.
Oh yeah,
but,
and he was fast. He could back it up.
Yeah,
when that kid was on, especially in Supercross.
Yeah. So I think it helped Ryan, and that 08 season was tough. But then in 09 he was Supercross and Motocross champion on the lights, and then he went and he's to date the only rookie ever to win 450 Supercross and 450 outdoor in the same year.
Is that right?
Yep, he's the only one.
Yeah, I guess Ricky didn't do that.
No,
that's impressive.
Yeah. So he won 4 titles in a row, which is super impressive. Yeah.
So
and Chad winning the outdoor that year, so we won the 5 titles. It was a great year, and we finished second in Supercross. Was awesome.
Did it surprise you that and who won Supercross that year that Reed got second?
Stewart. James. Yeah.
Did it surprise you that he won outdoors, Chad?
Yes.
I mean, like, you don't think of him as an outdoor.
Well, he had never won. That's the only outdoor title he ever won. So he never won a world championship, never won any other. That was the only outdoor title. So he won Supercross in 04, won Supercross in 08, and won outdoor in 09.
Yeah. We're going to take a break real fast, but I want to throw something at you. We had Phil Lawrence on the show not long ago, and we were talking about he and I both came from broken homes, and his was probably a worse situation than mine. My parents remarried right away, but he started asking a question. He goes, I wonder how much that affects your outcome as a motocross athlete. And he said, which of these champions, these people that win a ton, have just chaos and disarray in their life, like in their upbringing? And so we started going through it, like Dungey, parents still together, Ricky, parents still together, James, Chad. Like, you start rattling off all of the elite guys, and they all come from homes that are put together. Have you ever thought about that?
No.
When you guys are looking at people, I'm just saying.
That's cool, huh?
Go through the record books and start going, and look at their parents.
Did Greg's parents together?
I'm telling you.
That's awesome.
It's wild. I started making a list. I'm like, holy cow. There's exceptions, obviously. Stephen Everts, I think his folks split up.
Yes.
So it's certainly not 100% rule, but...
It's not ironclad. But
no.
Is that the word?
Ironclad, yeah.
Ironclad, yeah.
But there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. Anyway. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more. This is your TLD Timeout. Gentlemen, if you didn't already know, it's tax season here in the U.S., and you know what that means? It means that Manscaped is here to make sure your paperwork is done and your boys downstairs are having fun. Make sure you spend your tax return money on the important things this year, like family, friends, and ball deodorant. Join the 8 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the code Whiskey Throttle. What better way to invest your tax return than into yourself? Manscaped has the full package from head to toe to make sure you get your money's worth this April. The Performance Package 4.0 is the ultimate bundle you need to reinvent yourself and your confidence. The Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer is the star of the show, offering a precise shave on all your wildest edges. Equipped with an LED light, you can navigate in and out of those difficult areas with ease. Did we mention it's waterproof as well? Take it in the shower. More exciting news, the Performance Package 4.0 now includes Manscaped's brand new Weed Whacker 2.0 ear and nose hair trimmer. This thing is awesome. Your ears, as you get older, your hair leaves the top of your head. It starts coming out of your ears and your nose. And this thing handles it. So check it out. Cordless, rechargeable, comes with skin-safe technology, which helps reduce nicks, snags, and tugs. And after clearing your nose, make sure you get rid of that foul ball smell with Crop Preserver and Crop Reviver. Full line of products from Manscaped. And also, for all my guys out there with a little scruff or a little mustache like this guy here, Manscaped now has beard and mustache products. Yeah, the whole package. Their new Beard Hedger Pro Kit is the head honcho. containing 9 products plus wet goods. This is everything you need to craft your signature look. The start of spring also marks the start of Testicular Cancer Awareness Month in April. Manscaped's partnered with the Testicular Cancer Society to bring awareness to testicular cancer, men's health, and early cancer detection. So, folks, get 20% off and free shipping anywhere around the world using the code WhiskeyThrottle at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping using the code WhiskeyThrottle over at manscaped.com. Don't just get your money back this year, get your swagger back too with Manscaped. There's a new product on the market that's going to help you with your riding and racing, and it's Elevate Action Sports. If you've not yet gone and checked it out at elevateactionsports.com, it's a collective of riding coaches, the likes of which has never been put together. Grant Langston, Ryan Hughes, Jeff Emick, Johnny Campbell, and myself, David Pingree, bringing all of our years of experience in professional racing to one place with professionally produced videos and all kinds of supporting staff to help you with your mental side of racing, your physical side, your bike setup, your bike maintenance. We cover it all. Get to Elevate Action Sports right now and join the community.
Dunlop. There is a reason every AMA championship in the past decade was won on Dunlop tires. They are the best. Choose the best performing tire and a brand that has never wavered in their support of our sport. Choose Dunlop. Pro Circuit. Pro Circuit products are designed with one goal in mind: winning. Through passion and hard work, Pro Circuit has operated the most successful 250 team in the history of the sport. They use that same formula when developing exhaust, engine, and suspension parts for every brand. When only the highest level of performance is acceptable, trust Pro Circuit.
Since 2009, Seat Concepts has been dedicated to making the best aftermarket seats. More comfort, more grip, more riding. For 10 years, we've continued to raise the bar. Innovation and American craftsmanship make Seat Concepts the world-leading manufacturer of power sports seats.
Something from nothing. That's what Nihilo Concepts is about. It starts with a spark, an idea, a concept, which leads to a design, and finishes with engineered excellence with the highest quality products created with durability in mind. All our products are made in the USA at our state-of-the-art facility in Stuart, Florida. Whether you are a weekend warrior, ride for fun, or at the highest level of competition, Nihilo Concepts offers innovative titanium, aluminum, and carbon fiber parts for your dirt bike. We offer a wide variety of products that you can customize to your liking. Browse our site for foot pegs, brake tips, engine components, specialty tools, frame grip tape, lever grips, carbon fiber components, motor stands, our secondary on-switch, plus much more. Head to NihiloConcepts.com and see for yourself why factory teams like Red Bull KTM, Rockstar Husqvarna, Troy Lee Designs Gas, Orange Brigade, Club MX, KLM Gas, and some of the fastest riders in the world choose Nihilo Concepts.
Specialized Bicycles. Specialized leads the way in the world of bicycling. Whether it's cross-country racing, downhill, e-bikes, enduro, road, gravel, dual slalom, dirt jumping, or all mountain bikes that do it all, Specialized has the perfect ride for you. The brand is synonymous with engineering excellence and innovation that steers the industry. Visit your local Specialized dealer for a test ride and see just how good Specialized products are.
I try to keep on keeping on.
With a rich history in motocross, Pro-X has been dedicated to supplying quality components since 1975. Whether you're rebuilding an engine or just need a new chain, Pro-X Racing Parts aims to bridge the gap between OE quality and affordability. Pro-X has over 9,000 part numbers and over 60 different product types that are manufactured by highly reputable or even OEM suppliers and are offered at affordable prices to help keep riders on the bike instead of in the garage. Visit ProX.com to search parts for your bike or check them out at your favorite online or local dealer.
Audio Jungle.
The guys are just breaking in their race bikes, which will leave on the semi this Saturday to go to the first Supercross for our coast in Orlando. So the guys are just be goofing off a little bit, do some cool photos, do some cool videos. When you go racing, you want to do well, but a big key is keeping the bikes on the track. That's why we chose to work with Motul.
Expectations coming in as a rookie is just to try and get my feet wet and honestly just send it, see where I end up and do my best out there, but just ride aggressive and ride like myself in practice and I should have a good time.
Challenges of this sport, I believe, is just simply staying healthy. With how fast we're going and what we're doing, your margin for mistake is really, really small.
Stay Sick. If you have little rippers, then you have had to have seen Stay Sick bikes by now. We have created bike and experiences that allow kids to develop sooner and empower them to find their own ride. From learning to ride to sharpening skills, the Stay Sick promise is accelerated growth. Whatever path your family chooses, it's going to be the ride of your life. Stay Sick Stability Cycles.
I'm on vacation every single day cause I love my occupation. I'm on vacation. If you don't like your life, then you should go and change it.
All right, everybody, welcome back. That was your Troy Lee Designs timeout. If you guys have not been over to Troy Lee Designs website or into their shop, which is back open in Corona, if you live out here on the West Coast, go check it out. Incredible collection of helmets in there, and championship bikes, an old DMC Eddie Hicks YZ80. Really cool stuff if you've never been to that showroom. But online, all their spring stuff is out. Paint shops cranking, bicycle stuff, whatever you're into, Troy Lee Designs has got you covered, protecting you with safe stuff and making it look cool. So check those guys out. All right, Ian, I want to come back to, you guys, man, were you surprised at Dungey's success right away? Like, you guys have been grooming on the 250, but for him to come up and, like you said, win both titles this rookie year, no one's ever done that. I guess I missed that stat, but like, that was impressive. Were you surprised by that, or did you kind of see it coming?
I didn't see it coming, but I knew he was going to be good because in 2009, when we went to the Motocross of Nations in Maggiore, Italy, Ryan was part of that team, which was like the, what did they call it? There was a name for it. It was like the second team or something.
Oh, the B team?
The B team, that's right, the B team. And they won.
Who was it? Who was with him? Dungey and who?
I want to say it was Dungey, Tedesco, and who was the other 450 rider?
Gosh, I can't remember. Anyway,
I
remember that. I remember the B. I'm calling it the B team. I was like, that's kind of
the B team, and Ryan won the moto there. I mean, against Caroli and all those guys. And
on the 450.
Yes, and he was in his prime, and that was his first 450 ride. So then I thought, okay, he's going to be pretty good. And then after I watched him at the first Anaheim race James, and James passed him with like 2 laps to go, I think, in that race, I knew we had a good one.
Ryan always seemed like another great guy too. Geez, talk about another like genuine good guy, like Travis. He's just as nice and kind of aw shucks as he comes off. At least that was been my experience with him. Talk about his kind of what it took, because it always seemed like he was mentally second guessing himself a lot.
Yeah.
Right. Like he even said, I always felt like I had to do more, where once he got with Alden, he just trusted in Alden, and Alden kept him from overworking, but helped him believe that he was doing the right amount.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
I would agree with that, but he did have a hurdle that a lot of other guys don't have. And that was after he won in 2010, the second race, the Motocross Championship. in Southwick, we went and told him that we were moving along to KTM.
That's right.
And this poor guy, he envisioned his career going with Suzuki and everything working, and he had his team together, and he had just won both titles, and everything was going his way, and someone yanked the rug from underneath him.
Okay, so tell me about that. Tell me how this came to be, and I got to believe you were looking at Roger like, KTM, are you serious right now? I mean, well, all of you, and Dungey too, like, yeah. KTM, really?
So it's kind of a little bit of a long story, but I'll give you the short version. So 2009, Ryan wins both titles, and Suzuki seemed like finally we see them pulling back a little bit.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So for us, we had seen all this years of progression, and now it was going the other way, and it was enough to notice. And then 2010, we come out, he's winning. We're using a lot of the stuff from the year before, which is nothing wrong because it's all good and things are going forward. And Roger tells me, hey, my contract ends, and no one's talking to me. So
is this during Supercross, or when is this?
This is during Supercross. He tells me, and then so I think to myself, I need a job. I better make sure something's going on. So I talked to a couple of guys. I know Carlos and Frankie and all these guys that I actually work with today, and they were at Honda at the time. And I said, hey, I'm just throwing this out there, but do you think you guys might need somebody, engine guy or something? They said, well, you never know. So I was putting my feelers out there. Anyway, I come back to Roger a couple of weeks later, and I tell him, hey, I'm also checking out. He says, don't do anything. And he said, by the way, I want to see, can you and your wife come to my house on the weekend? We have an off weekend, Saturday night. So I said, yeah, sure. And I go home and I told Penn, yeah, Roger wants to see us. I go, I wish it wasn't on our weekend off, but yeah, let's go. So we go over there, and we come in, we're talking, and like the conversation's not going anywhere. I'm like, what is this about? So finally I say, hey, Rog, so what's the story? He goes, yeah, I wanted to talk to you about something. I've been talking to KTM. And I said, KTM, couldn't you choose another one? Like KTM, they've never won a 450 program. Do they even have a program going over here? And he says, no, they for real. And he says, you actually know Pitt Byra. He raced with you when you guys were 125, which is true. Pitt actually flew down to South Africa in the one off season to ride with Greg when we were still kids. Yeah, stayed at Greg's house. And he said that they're willing to make the same investment that they're doing in Europe, and they feel now that when all these motorcycles companies are regressing, because that was when we were in the recession and everyone was pulling back, that they want to make a push. So I said to him, really? And he says, yeah, really.
And so, at this point, who did KTM even have?
I don't even know. I can't even tell you today. I don't. I was like,
I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, so I think like the English guy, what's his name again? He was over here. I'm
drawing a blank. I'm trying to think of who.
Me too.
I'm going back to like Smets and
they like
King.
Alessi had been there on that 350. He had done well at that one race.
And Ramsey was on the 250 for a minute.
Ramsey
was
on
well.
there, yeah.
Hansen.
But like no one, like it was never a threat. You always felt like they had a good engine on the 125. They were good, but you never worried about them for the championship. That was how I looked at it. I always looked at Honda, Cowie, Mitch.
Yeah.
Those were the guys that, and Yamaha, of course. I was like, these are the guys that. Anyway, long story short is.
So what did you and Penny go when you left that night?
I was like, she said, well, you should look at everything. It's an option. You need to pray about it. So I was like, okay. So anyway, it was an off weekend. So we go to the river. I take Greg's boat. I go out to the river. Pitt calls me, and he's like, hey, Ian, I really need you to make a commitment, because if you make a commitment, Roger's going to make the commitment. And so the couple of days later, I said to him, hey, I'll think about it. But he's nearly already dragged me in. I'm such a sucker, like nearly say, okay. And so I go back to work and I get to work and I go to Roger and say, hey, Rog, I want to talk to you about that KTM thing. He says, never talk about the KTM thing here. This is Suzuki. This is Suzuki are paying us. We work for Suzuki. If you want to talk to me about that, we do it outside these walls. It's like, all right, message heard loud and clear.
Yeah.
And
I like that though. That's respectful.
Yeah. He didn't mince any words there. So like, you know, you get a little butthurt. You know, you're like, okay, screw it. Anyway, he talks to me a couple weeks later. We're in the airport or something, and he tells me he met with them in Denver. You know.
Okay.
And he's gonna do this thing. So
he's in.
He tells me he's in. So Pitt calls me and says, you know, you want to do it? And I say, I give him a figure and a couple other things that I'm thinking about. And
was it? Did you throw him a pretty high number?
Let me put it this way: Suzuki was never the best paying place. So I put what I thought was out there for the other one, and they said yes right away. And they, when Pitt talked to me, he's like, "You're not going to regret this. We're gonna do it. I know we can. We just need the right direction." So
I remember him saying.
So I say okay, and then Rog goes quiet. Like weeks go by, nothing, not crickets, and I'm like, this guy has left me out to dry. You know, I'm going to be on this program on my own, and. Finally, I'm like, Rog, are you like in? And he's like, yeah, no, I'm going to do it. I'm like, well, when are you going to sign the thing? And finally he signed and we did the deal, and we were pretty chuffed, you know. We thought, okay, like this is the next adventure. All the Austrians fly down here to Marietta, just a few miles away from where we are right now. And we go meet them, and they take us through the facility. And my heart drops. I'm walking.
I'm trying to think of the facility back then. It was because their old one was in San Diego.
No, it wasn't
when I
that
signed
one.
with them.
No, it wasn't that one.
Was real rough.
Yeah, it wasn't that one. I think this was an upgrade, but it was still nothing like what we had.
What you came, yeah.
Yes. So
back to the pig farm.
Yeah, pretty much in a way. And we meet all of them, and they tell us that we have to race a 350, and we got to do this, and Roger's just agreeing. He's like, okay, we'll give it a go for 1 year. We'll see. And I'm thinking, man, I don't know about all of this. And anyway, I'm driving home, and my first call was to Carlos Rivera. You know, he was a mechanic at Honda, and I needed to now recruit some people, you know. And so I called him, and he's like, I'd worked with him at Suzuki previously with Davey Millsaps. And I said, hey, are you interested in coming? And he says, what's it like? I said, oh, it's awesome. And so he's like, I said, you know, we can, and then we had some boundaries to work in with what we could pay guys and what we could get. And he tells me, no, I'll come, but I want Frank Latham to come with me. So like each person had like this.
A buddy.
Yeah, someone to come.
If I sink,
so,
you're coming in.
So I'm like, yeah. Like I knew Frankie from all the races. He's a great guy, but I never worked with him. So it's like, yeah, of course. If you trust him, hey, I'm all in. And so that's how it started to build. But the first day, and then when I was finished with that and finished with Roger at the Starbucks where we chatted about what we thought, I called my wife on the way home. I said, hey, I'm on my way home. She says, so what do you think? I said, honestly, I think I've made a big, big mistake. And she's like, why? I said, honey, this place, it needs so much. Like, it's like starting from scratch, like when we went to Suzuki all those years ago. I said, like, I don't know if I've got it in me to do this whole thing again, you know, and be a part of it. And she says, like, it'll work out. You'll see, you know, just, you got to be positive. And she was right. You know, when I look at it today, and no disrespect to Suzuki, I jumped off a submarine and jumped onto a rocket. One went this way and one went that way, and I was on the one going up. Yeah. And so what a blessing for me in my life, you know.
Well, they say, you know, it's whether you're a racer or a manager, surround yourself with good people, right?
Yep.
And you've done that.
Yep.
It looks like your whole career. And
yeah.
The results speak for themselves. I was going to say, I remember when they first hired you guys and they were making this big push and they said, we're going to build an orange village, here in U.S. racing. And I was kind of like, all right, and it's like they've done that.
Yes.
And a red one and a white one, now. So, it's
and
impressive.
There's people out there that are going to have different opinions, and they're going to say, they're trying to take over and everything. But isn't it cool to have a brand that is so into off-road riding, that build bikes and two-strokes and bikes to go trail riding, bikes to go motocrossing, bikes to go, to the trials course, bikes to go through the desert with.
Yeah.
I mean, there's everything. And that's what we should look at is how cool this brand is behind off-road racing. Whether you like a Honda, a Yamaha, a Kawasaki, a KTM, a Gas, a Husky, doesn't matter. We need to build the sport of off-roading, and that's what they're doing, and I love that.
Yeah, and personally keeping two strokes alive, I love that, and advancing those, with fuel injection.
Yeah,
which I want to pick your brain about later, but
it
is, and as a smaller company, they're able to make moves that these bigger ones aren't. But it's pushing those bigger brands to keep up and elevate their game.
Yeah, and we've also got a little. We also don't turn on a dime anymore because we're also a lot bigger.
Yeah.
When I came, it was one building with 40 people, and then we moved to all over the block. That's why they built a new facility, because we had, WP up here and R&D here, and human resources over here and bicycles here, and so now we've moved all back under one roof again. But it when companies get big, it's also tougher. You can't move on a dime, but. Yeah, it's cool to be a part and see the growth over the years. It's nice to be a part of it.
Yeah. So take me through that first year with Dungey there.
So actually the first year, 2011, was our first year. No Dungey. Roger tells Dungey, stay where you're at. And his contract was still 1 year.
Okay. I thought he came right away.
Yeah, so no, he stays. So he stays at Suzuki in 2011. We go to KTM. Our riders are Alessi and Short.
All right. Shorty rode the 350.
And Kenny and Marvin. Kenny is part-time because he's racing World Championship still. Marvin's full-time in the US.
Okay.
So very...
And did Marv win the 250 championship, or he was second, right?
No, he was a little bit further back, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he had some good rides, but not... Couple crashes, nothing, and then he got hurt in the outdoors. So not a great first year. Kenny also rode pretty well. I think he won one race, but didn't ride all of them because he was racing the World Championship.
Yeah.
But his goal was to come here. We go a few rounds in. They start talking about bringing Dungey. Of course, that's our ultimate goal, but he's riding a Suzuki right now. So Roger meets with him and says, you are not going to get a Villapoto, a Dungey, a Reed when you tell them you're going to give them 100 cc's less to compete against. You have to build a 450.
Yeah.
And we hear that it's not necessary, and Stefan Everts is over there, and Tony Caroli's winning on a 350, and points you can't argue against. These are facts that they're doing. So we said, yes, that all works, but we're talking about Supercross and we want a 450. And they said, listen, the last 450 we built, we couldn't even sell them in the US. We still got them. So one thing leads to another. In April, they pull the trigger and say, we're going to build one. June, we have it.
That fast?
That fast. I don't think that will ever happen again, ever.
Jeez.
Fuel injected bike, we have one. We start testing with it, working with it. Eventually, I'm not going to divulge the exact date, but we test with Ryan with it. Ryan says he's a go. We keep working on the bike. We take it to Ryan comes over at the end of the season, end of the motocross season. He had some issues that year, unfortunately, with his bike, so he didn't. Villapoto won. Both championships.
Who was working with Dungey then at Suzuki?
It was Goose stayed. Goose was there.
Stayed.
Yeah, Goose was there.
Was it Mike
and
Webb?
Mike Webb was team manager, yeah. And then so Ryan comes over 2012, or we do that off-season race with the bike. Not so good. We got a lot of work to do. We're still trying to get things lined up. We start the first Anaheim race. I can't remember where he finishes, it's good.
I thought it was a third. I thought he got a podium in his first one with you guys. No,
It could be, but the second race he won. And I swear it was like Austria had won another world title. They were over the moon with the result. And so were we. That was another big one, like Greg's one when he won.
Yeah.
Because that year at Suzuki, at KTM, you should have seen the amount of money they poured in. We said, we need a new semi, go get one. We said, we need a new dyno, go get one. We need a proper shop, build one. Like there was nothing they held, everything they promised us in those meetings, they did, and more. We need more people, get them. We need this guy, got it. We need support from Austria, coming. It was awesome.
So it goes right back to what I said earlier about if management, if the head of the organization loves racing and they're passionate about it, it's going to show in the results.
Yes.
Right? Because it's budget, it's support, it's
yes,
whatever you need, right?
So Ryan Dungey becomes the first Supercross winner for KTM ever. They've never won a main class Supercross race. And then he goes on in 2012 to struggle a little bit.
Oh, little side note, much less important. I was the first American winner for KTM in the 125 class.
Awesome.
2002.
Nice.
Anyway, not a big deal.
Good.
GL won in 01.
Yeah, he won the title.
He's a Saffer, that doesn't really count.
So then it was a tough year because I remember going to...
Was that the year you guys had the air shock issue?
No, that came later. So San Diego, Supercross, tough section of whoops. Ryan's like struggling like crazy. And I remember walking out of there and one of the fans says to me, taps me on my back when I'm walking out, I'd been in the stand, says, "Are you trying to kill Ryan Dungey?" And I was so embarrassed, like that, just getting heckled walking back from the stand. And, but I was like,
it could have been
I'm
worse.
going to show this guy that, we're going to do everything we can to make it better. So anyway, we worked through the season. Ryan breaks his collarbone. And so he misses a majority of the races. Supercross. And then he actually raced with a broken collarbone in, I don't know which race if it was Minnesota or Indy, but him and Ryan Villapoto battled the whole race like an epic race.
That was Minneapolis.
And
I think it was Minneapolis.
And Ryan's like, "Roger, my collarbone's clicking and it's really sore." And Roger's like, "Well, you better get it checked out." Sure enough, he goes to get x-rays, broken, and the guy says, "It's polished." So it's been going like this. So he practiced the week and raced like that. So he's a tough sucker.
Yeah.
And so
golly, wow,
so then
that's crazy.
So he comes back at the end of the season, starts racing. Villo jacks his knee up, but wins the title.
Okay.
I think Seattle, Villapoto messes his knee up.
Right after he had wrapped it up.
So Ryan actually moves into third place in the overall standings, which was KTM's very first podium in Supercross also. And then Villapoto's not there in 2012. Ryan wins the outdoor title. I think he wins 10 of the 12 rounds. We started with Tomac. No, Tomac was still lights. There was somebody else in there, James, or somebody else got hurt. But Ryan wins the outdoor titles, first outdoor title.
Was that when James hurt his knee? No, that was earlier than that, wasn't it?
No, sorry, the years blend in a little bit.
Yeah, I get it.
So then I just know that a couple of the guys were missing. But Ryan wins the outdoor title, first outdoor title in the 450 class ever for KTM.
Was that big for you guys, or were you guys really looking at Supercross?
Was huge because the last race was in Elsinore, was 113, and Mr. Pira flew all the way out.
Oh, did
and
he?
Stood in that boiling hot heat to watch him win the title here, which just showed me like this guy, man, he owns all these companies, and he came out here to watch this in this
miserable dust.
Yes. So
that
was a cool one.
Yeah, that's
really
super cool.
Yeah, super cool. And he came out with his wife, was really awesome. And then we went into the era of working on the bike and getting it better. And
when was the new gen?
15. So then Villapoto really dominates here these next few years, 13 and 14. Villo's basically untouchable, and Ryan's behind him, getting frustrated, doubting some stuff here and there. We pulling our hair out, but in the background, we're working on a new bike. And each time we test this bike, it seems like, this thing's going to be good. Oh, yes, this thing is going to be light. And 2014, after Supercross, we know Kenny's moving away to Suzuki. They go into the outdoor season. Ryan and Kenny have an amazing outdoor season. Ken Roxon ends up winning. Something happened to Villo again, I think. I can't remember if he went to Europe that one year or what the heck happened. I don't remember. But I
can't remember either.
Yeah, so Kenny wins the outdoor title. Ryan finishes a very close second. Marvin's doing great. And then we move into 2015. New generation bike, super light bike, great bike. The bike is most probably one of the most dominant bikes I've worked on from 2015 to 2019. Roughly the same bike, or 2020. Wins multiple titles across KTM and Husky.
Yeah, and if you look at globally between the GPs and here, it was winning a lot.
Yeah, it was an awesome time too. Just an awesome bike. Yeah, could put anyone on it, and they were good.
It came a long way. My favorite quote of the old KTMs is Grant had some issues with his arms. I can't remember what the problem was, and he goes to his doctor, and his doctor says, "Do you operate a jackhammer or something?" He says, "No, but I do ride a KTM 250." That's a true story.
Oh, really?
Anyway.
That is a good one.
That was the early two-stroke,
Yeah.
Anyway, long time ago. So take me through that championship season in 15, that first one. I remember you guys celebrating that win and just...
So big changes for Dungey. He marries his wife, or his longtime girlfriend and fiance. He gets married. He moves to Florida, starts working with Eldon. He was always fit, but I think now he was always so disciplined on his food. And I mean, the guy was like a robot, he wouldn't step out of line on anything. But finally feels like, okay, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to, and maybe even a little less.
Yeah.
And just truly takes off like a missile.
Yeah.
He wins both titles that year, ends up winning. He won 10 Supercrosses. They took one away because he jumped on a red flag, but he crossed the finish line, which is incredible, winning 10 races.
Yeah.
Scores 391 points in a season for Supercross. That's unbelievable. Normally takes 360 to win. Just a great year for him. Goes to the outdoors, wins the outdoors. Just looking like on cloud.
Yeah. You made a good decision at this point, right? You're pretty proud.
Then he moves we go into the, Marvin also wins the lights title.
That was the year. Okay.
Yeah, Marvin wins the 250 lights title. Goes into 2016. Not much has changed. We keep the bike roughly the same. He takes off same way. Now we got the new generation of guys, Eli and Roxon and all these guys that are incredibly fast.
Yeah.
And Ryan comes out on top again.
Take me through that first Supercross title, because
in 2015.
Yeah, for KTM, that had to be. I mean, that's the pinnacle, right? Like the Supercross championship.
Dude, it was unbelievable, and
I remember seeing video or pictures of everybody.
2 rounds from the end. He won it in Houston. I remember Pitt and Robert and them all came out. They got so hammered. There was the same night, actually, Webb won too, because Webb won, I can't remember what it was.
Okay.
If it was West Coast title, I think it was maybe West. That was Webb's first win too. And I remember him coming down to the truck and then both doing burnouts together and like really getting crazy. But just incredible, But for Dungey, he had gone through this this drought from 2010 all the way to 2015.
So big for him too.
Big for him. Yeah, huge for him. And for KTM, it was massive. I mean, we went back there at the end of the year for a party, and I was like off the hook. Like, those guys are
in Austria.
They're crazy, dude. They're crazy.
I went back for it was called Night of the Stars or something like that, and all of KTM's team riders came to this thing.
Yeah.
And they had to jump up onto the stage. Guys are jumping these rally bikes onto the stage, doing burnouts in this enclosed building. They're racing mini bikes around later, when everybody's drunk. I mean, it was just, and the bosses, like, they're all in on it.
Yeah. They're part of the action. Yeah. So it was something similar, and just really, really awesome, man. Yeah.
That's awesome. Were you pretty involved in the development of that new gen, or was that a lot of Austria, or kind of a little bit of both? We were involved. Austria did a lot of work on that. The nice part was we had we have such a good communication between R&D and racing, so they would get all the information back, and they let the riders ride it early, and good riders. They would give Jeffrey a go on it. They give. We had Dunge ride it a few times in different stages, and we had to be careful because you don't want to give them something they can't use. Yeah, bum them out.
which was a little problematic in 2014. But to get it to where you need it to be, you have to go through those tough times. So it's not easy, but in the end, man, it was an awesome bike.
And is there sort of a tug of war between you guys here in Austria? Because what you need here is a little different than what they need in Europe, right?
Absolutely. I think in the beginning that was always a challenge with them when we first started talking to them, like with the 350, 450 story. But what I neglected to tell you was in that 2012 when they made that first factory edition bike and they brought 425 bikes in.
That's right.
They sold them the very first day, every one of them. So then they were, this is nice.
Oh, look, we like sell 450s.
This thing's good.
That was smart of them. And this factory edition thing, allowing them to basically release a new bike every 6 months rather than every year, right?
Yeah,
essentially.
And it's a little bit different, but that was a massive change.
Yeah.
That 2015 factory edition bike was huge.
Yeah.
And same with the 2012 one, because then you could get a factory edition bike that was fuel injected, because their old 450 was a carburetor.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then I want to feel free to speak about this as much or as little as you want, but you guys have been having some frame issues or chassis issues sometime in the past few years. Cooper talked about it last year, not really feeling comfortable on that bike. And I want to say even a year or two before that, when that cross brace piece got put on.
Yeah.
It made it a little too stiff maybe, or just something the guys didn't like.
No, with the cross piece, we did a lot of work with that, and they were already working on the bike we're racing today, and they were already going in that direction with making the bike stiffer. But because you're governed by the production rule, there's only certain ways you can stiffen things up. So that was one way we did it, and we raced it like that in 1920, and I mean Cooper was champion on it. Then in 20, Osborne won the outdoor title with it. In 21, Cooper won again. The Supercross title was all with that brace.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
So it was all in there. And
so what was it he wasn't comfortable with in 22?
Well, 22 is our new generation bike. So that's where we got the bike, and I hate to make excuses, but due to COVID and all these other things, there were so many things that were cancelled that we had done before with previous testing on trying the bike. So we missed a phase from like one where the bike came and then they made the final few changes to what the end result was. We missed one stage of riding it. So when we got the bike, every rider we put on it said, "Oh, we like it. Yeah, it's better. It's good." And Cooper also made some changes in his
program.
Program.
Yeah.
And then we went to the first few races, and the very first race, actually, Coop got second in 2022. And then we started to struggle. And then, when you like that, you start bouncing. You go this way, then you go that way. And you go every way except straight where you're supposed to go. And
momentum can go both ways.
Yeah.
Right?
And no matter how smart you are, no matter how many good people you are, you can make some really dumb mistakes. And I was part of that. And so we lost our way a little bit there, and that's why in the off season we were like, hey, let's try and get a really neutral look on this thing, and let's do a data test. And that's what I was talking to you earlier before we started the show. And we brought in this bike, we brought in some guys, we got some of the parts from MotoGP, which is awesome. And we did this data test on our new generation bike. And like I said earlier, it's tough to do those tests because they're boring. It takes a long time to make a change from one thing to when you're moving all these little gadgets and bolts and wires and everything. But in the end, we learned some valuable information that we switched to this year that really, really helped us and helped every rider across the board. Yeah, so it was good. Yeah, really good.
It's been fun to watch. And, you guys are doing something right. It's so fun to watch the KTM guys because your bikes have an ability to turn lower, tighter than a lot of the other brands. And you can see it. Cooper's so good at it. But Dungey was good at it.
Yeah.
Just whatever the main line is, he's carving a little bit lower.
Yeah.
He's still able to do the jumps and good grip.
Yeah.
So I'm like, sneaky.
Yeah,
They're doing something.
Yeah, you got to shorten the track up, and the corners is where you make your time. Everyone jumps, the rhythm's the same. The corners and the whoops,
Yeah.
So you got to figure those out, and then you have to make a sacrifice for which one's going to buy you the most time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want a quick opinion on, I still kind of find it confusing, the acquisition of Husky and Gas from the KTM group. I thought, well, maybe they'll have, like, Husky will be, off-road and Gas would be this or something, but they all compete. So you're just gaining market share and giving people options. I mean, how do you view that?
Well, it all boils back down to Mr. Stefan Pira. He looks at like VW.
Okay.
And he sees that, they have Audi, they have Skoda, they have this, they have that. And people want different things, but they want something that's reliable and good. But not everyone wants something orange. Not everyone wants something red. So he feels like, okay, this would be a way to give people different options, and you change some things up and you make the bike feel different. You give it some different ergos. You make one bike with a little bit lower suspension, maybe bring one with different brakes. And that was his outlook on it. And he feels like if you have that development team there and you don't have to reinvent the wheel for every single one of them,
right.
You can make these small changes and you can streamline your business model and have more product out there for different people.
Scale it without adding back office costs, right?
But I do agree. Like now, we get bigger and KTM is right next to Husqvarna and Husqvarna is right next to Gas, and this information is readily available. But the rider is still a big factor, And like we talked about earlier too, a short rider, tall rider, they need different settings. So the bike is still quite different in motocross from one rider to other to make the setting work. So it's still a lot up to the rider and what you can give them and how you can develop that bike. But the main reason for doing it was they saw their success in sales and growth when they went racing Supercross. And I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I think in Supercross, it's a global market. I know for a fact my brother knows exactly who is riding in Supercross. He lives in a little town in South Africa, but he knows who's in it.
Yeah.
But he necessarily doesn't know who's riding the GNCC championship or the this or the that. So it's the same as MotoGP. You don't sell a MotoGP bike, but a person knows that that's a KTM. And when they go to the bike store, there's a KTM. Yeah, I see them. So that's the marketing value of it. So they feel like to really market their off-road bikes, you need to compete in Supercross.
Yeah, they're doing it.
Yeah.
I thought when I first heard about this Triumph, I thought, oh no, KTM just bought another brand and it's going to be a black, KTM or something.
Yeah.
That's not the case, right?
No.
Okay.
But isn't it cool that now here's another brand? So that means more jobs for mechanics, more jobs for riders, team managers, semi-truck drivers, everything. It grows the sport. I think it's really awesome that they're coming in.
Does it surprise you?
Triumph?
Yeah. I mean, it's not.
No.
It seems a little like.
No, I suppose a long time ago it did, but I've heard about it for such a long time now. What surprises me is how no pictures have leaked.
I know.
Like, I'm like, how this, they must make everyone put their phone in a basket because someone always wants to take a picture and be the first guy to say, I saw it.
Yeah.
But nothing's come out.
No,
so
I haven't seen a peep.
That's pretty good.
Well, that'll be interesting to see what happens. Have you guys worked? I talked to you a little bit at Straight Rhythm this year. You were there working on those fuel-injected two-strokes.
Yep.
And we had a brief conversation about, that's just going to take some time to develop. Just like the four-strokes, when they first came out, they were kind of linear feeling. Didn't have a lot of character. And it's kind of the same thing with the new two-strokes. It's just going to take some time getting the mapping and figuring that out. Is that, since we talked, has that kind of made some progress here and in Europe?
Yeah, for sure. I think once the bikes hit the market, they learn some more information too. Because when you're developing a bike and you working at R&D, you have a big group of people that ride the bike, but it's not like when you launch it to the public. And then you have this wide spectrum of people using different fuel, riding in different altitudes, different places, different terrains. Then you get feedback, Yeah. And so they for sure, I know that they have a lot of information that they're working on, and they're gonna get it better. And the bike we worked on at the Straight Rhythm was pretty cool. We overall was great, and for sure there were some things we took away from there that we can get better, but still, Marvin ended up winning. Yeah, and I hope so, because it's the only new developed 250 that's out there. So that was cool, and Yamaha too.
Yeah. I'm just stoked to see them continue to develop two-strokes. I know there's a pretty good crowd of people that love them.
Yeah.
Whether it's just for nostalgic reasons or the simplicity of working on them and riding them. It's just...
I agree. You can put a two-stroke in your garage and leave it for a year and come back and fire it up and it's ready to go.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Cooper Webb, did you expect him to be as good as he was when he joined you guys?
I thought he would be ready.
Yeah.
I always, looking at riders for 450 class, I always feel like they need to win the Lights Supercross and the Lights Motocross Championship. There's not many who haven't done both. I think, Dungey did it. Chad didn't. I can't remember if McGrath didn't, but all the others did. James did, Ricky did, all of them. So they have that trajectory, like Jet Lawrence now too. You can see, and Chase and all these guys. And Cooper had done it. And the deal with Coop was
his parents are still together too.
Yep, parents are still together. True. And with Cooper, when we got him, or when he was hurt, and we basically called him when he was in hospital.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And we said we wanted to give him a chance, but we said he needed to take the whole program. We wanted him to take the Alden thing, and he jumped on right away. So I was pretty happy. Then he came to ride for us, and we went to the first few tests, and dude, he was way off.
Oh yeah,
against Anderson and Marvin, and I was like, whew, okay, this is gonna take a while. And then that was I want to say that was in October. Then I went back late November, and he had halved the gap, but it was still a big gap. Like he wasn't with them, and Jason was Supercross champion. So I was like, you had the guy there. So came back in December for a photo shoot or something, and he was closer. And then came back in late December to California to get ready for the first Anaheim, and he was really close. But like not there completely. Went to the first race, was a mudder, like that year with Ricky, and he set the fastest lap of the race. And right
Is
there,
that the one Barsha won?
yes,
Okay. I think I remember he worked his way.
he crashed in the start,
Yeah.
and he came from last to fifth. And I swear, I knew then that, okay, he's got a shot. And then the next race we went to, I was like, oh, maybe not. Because we went to Phoenix and he finished, I think, 8th or 12th. I can't remember. I was way back. But then we came back to California. We did another small tweak on the bike. And he looked really good that week practicing. And we had the next race was a Triple Crown at Anaheim. And he won the first moto. He beat Kenny. He passed Kenny right near the end. And then the second moto he won, and the last moto he got third, and he won his first overall. And then you could see the light go on. And then it took him a while to get in the points lead, but he as a racer, mentally on the mental side, maybe I've never worked with anyone tougher.
Reed's the only guy who I can say maybe is as strong mentally.
Yeah, you're right.
Cooper's gnarly. Like he doesn't seem to get rattled, and he gets stronger in the stretch, you know? Like the more pressure the situation has, he shines more. It's crazy.
Actually, in a race, if it's tight with a lot of chaos with a big group of them, then he gets even better.
Yeah, what is
like
that?
That he can focus and really perform and see gaps where he can get through. And like a lot of guys want to get away and make a gap but he prefers it when it's like that. He gets stronger.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Was that the year he kept pimping Ken Roxon right at the last lap?
Yeah.
Remember, I think Dean Wilson got kind of held Reed up for a sec.
No, that was the next year. But remember, one of the most epic races was where he passed Kenny in Dallas, like basically up the finish line.
I remember that.
They came
he's taken hundreds of thousands of dollars out of Kenny's pocket.
Yeah.
In like the last, seconds of a race.
Yeah.
All right. So for you, is this, I know you love it. You obviously do, but is this grind wearing on you? You've been going to the races for a long time.
Yeah, I've been going to the races for over 30 years. And I think in the 30 years, if I've missed 10 races, that would be a lot. I don't even know how many, but it's not even 10.
You're like platinum status elite with somebody. I know it.
No, actually, I should take that back. I sound like I'm blowing my own horn here. But no, it's been a lot. And it does. It's, there's been a lot of sacrifices from my wife's side, from my children's side. And I do have some regrets there, but at the same time, it's been a job that I've been able to provide for them, and my wife's always been able to spend time with my kids and really have one-on-one, and they turned out so awesome. So when I look at that, I wouldn't change anything. It is a sacrifice, right? I mean, as men, as if you're the breadwinner of your house, like, you want to spend as much time with your kids while you have them, but it's also your responsibility to provide, and you've got dreams and things you want to do. Yeah. It's a tough line to walk. Yeah. The race schedule doesn't change for birthdays or graduations and you have to, you miss a lot of that stuff, and it's tough. And even my kids have told me now that they're much older, some of that, they had some resentment, and right? I get it. But now they also appreciate, everything that we were able to do, as a family. And so I'm grateful for the motorcycle industry and what it's given me in my life. It's basically my whole life, from a little kid of dreaming about that to getting my job to being where I am today.
Do you ever think back to that and go, man, I'm here. I did it. I used to look at my pictures and go, how do I get there? And here you are.
Yeah, my wife often reminds me about that.
Yeah,
when I'm frustrated, she's
good.
like, hey, what did you used to think about? Where are you? And she's right. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to appreciate the things that you have today that you wished for yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Like that's important. Is there anything inside the sport or outside the sport even that you want to try? Like, would you ever see yourself doing something different? Or will you retire here? And
I hope I will. I don't want to be going till I'm 79. But I'm so thankful. I started at the very bottom, just as a basic mechanic, and was able to have a mentor like Jan, who helped me grow, Roger, who really, really helped me grow, Mitch, who taught me things, about the engine stuff from watching and seeing and learning, and all these people along the way. But ultimately, my family have been amazing to me, always encouraging me, especially my wife, and Greg, giving me the opportunity, telling me all those years ago, hey, do you want to go? Imagine I'd said no. Where would I be today?
Be under a greasy diesel truck.
Dirty, going to the shower. So, I have so many people to be grateful for, but Rog ultimately has slowly just mentored me step by step through each thing, learning the different positions and different ropes, and eventually going from a mechanic to R&D to grinding engines to building engines to switching from 2 strokes to 4 strokes to learning fuel injection to doing the R&D work to becoming a team manager to doing the contracts to negotiating sponsorship deals to so what a blessing, eh?
Yeah.
I have nothing but gratitude. I do get frustrated, and I do sometimes think I'd like to maybe stay at home on a weekend, but
you'd be home and go just missing it. That's the truth.
Yeah.
Do you ever count up all the titles you've been a part of?
No, I don't know what it is.
It's a lot. I might just do it for you one day because it's a lot.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
I think outside of Roger, I don't know if there's anyone who's been involved who has their hand in that many championships. That's really cool.
Yeah.
It's very impressive.
Thank you. Yeah. And what I like is I did it, I was a part of it as a mechanic. I was a part of it as, an engine builder. I was a part of it as the R&D guy. I was a part of it as the crew chief and part of it as team manager. So that was one thing that really scared me in 2019 when they gave me the team manager job, is I thought, flap, if I take this thing over and we don't win a race again, what? How am I going to live with that, But luckily that first year, Coop brought us the title.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And tell me about your kids a little bit. How old are they now?
My oldest is Courtney. She's 24.
Oh, 24 already.
Yeah, she's married. And
do you like her husband?
Love him.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, when your kids are going to get married, I'm sure you go.
They're 15 and 16, so I'm so worried about it.
Time, yeah.
Oh.
Well, when you pick them up from high school, you just, please don't bring one of these guys with their pants hanging down and they're like, you're like, so there's so much to be scared of.
I'm terrified.
But she met an awesome guy with fantastic parents.
Really?
That are together.
That's great.
And don't live too far from us. And
it's perfect.
Yeah, perfect. And then my youngest is she's working in the church. She's at the church we go to. She's at the outreach ministry, and just loving life. She had a tough time a little bit ago with this whole COVID thing. She graduated through that and was a total mess for all those kids.
Ripped those kids off.
Yeah, ripped them off, exactly.
Prom and their graduation and
But I'm so proud of her for everything that she's come through and where she is today. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, that is like to have 2 children kind of launched and successful and happy. That's just like, I want to get there so bad.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm in the pits of teenage years right now.
I had 2 teenage girls too, and there's some tough moments.
Right? Okay. Yeah. So it's not just me?
No.
Some days I'm like, what have we done?
Yeah. But no, it's all worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Kind of our final question we ask everybody is how you want to be remembered in this sport. And you're still leaving your mark, but...
Yeah, I think how would I want to be remembered? Just a guy that gave everything that he had to move the thing along, move it down the road, you know. And I think one thing that I'm proud of is taking a couple of risks. You know, I haven't taken many, but I've taken a few. You know, going to Europe and coming to the States and then moving from a winning team to a non-winning team. You know, those were big moments in my life, but the best decisions I ever made, each one of them.
You got to take some risks, huh?
You got to take some risks, and you got to believe in yourself. You know, you need to be humble, and you need to listen to people. You need to trust people, and I would say that's it.
Well, I would say you're doing it, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on. It's been a pleasure. What a cool story.
Thank you.
And you're not done, you know. Jeez. If you go till Roger's age, think how many titles you might have.
Yeah.
I don't know if Penny's going to allow that. Thanks so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. Stay tuned. We're going to be back to wrap up the show.
Awesome. Thank you.
I wanna be bad with you, girl, like we're Robin and Bank. I wanna be mad at the world, like it took you away.
Well, big thank you to Ian Harrison for taking the time to come in today. I hope that if you weren't aware of who he is, you understand just how influential he's been in our sport over the past, two plus decades, 3 decades. And I truly wasn't just saying that to blow sunshine up his skirt. I think he's going to end up being, he's following in Roger DeCosters' footsteps, not from a racing standpoint, but in terms of just influencing and being involved in championship winning teams and riders. And just such a great human being. I'm really proud to call him a friend and honored, and stoked that he took the time to come in. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks so much for watching and or listening. And as always, support our sponsors. These folks keep these shows coming to you. So if you enjoy them, Yamaha's making the best motorcycles there are right now, whether you're dirt, street, whatever, doesn't matter, side-by-sides. All of our partners, we really pride ourselves on only aligning with very, very premium brands. So we stand behind absolutely everyone that's on this board behind us and in our ads here. So support them, and we will continue to bring you shows. Thanks as always, and we'll see you guys next time. The Whiskey Throttle Show is brought to you by Yamaha. Join the Blue Crew today and take advantage of all that Yamaha has to offer, including amateur racing trackside support, awesome Yamaha contingency, Jason Rain's demos and instructional classes, and frankly, the most high-performing motorcycles available on the market today. Whether you're looking for a 4-stroke, a 2-stroke, a side-by-side, a quad, a boat, a generator, Yamaha prides themselves on absolute top-level quality and reliability. Rev your heart with Yamaha and join the Blue Crew today. Method Race Wheels, bringing you the lightest, strongest, fastest wheels in off-road for your truck, van, sprinter, UTV, or SUV. They've been dominating the Baja 500 and 1000 and every major off-road event around the world for years with high quality and performance. They also look amazing. They come in a bunch of different styles and colors for your rig, so check them out. You can get 20% off a set of wheels using our code Whiskey Throttle. No capitals, no spaces. 20% off using our code. Check them out. Troy Lee Designs is the leader in off-road motocross apparel and style. So whether you're looking for a cool new paint job for your helmet, maybe your name and number on your helmet lettered on, you're looking for new gear, you're looking for mountain bike gear, off-road gear. They've got the brand new Scout line and GP and SE models. Troy Lee Designs has it all. They've been leading this industry for decades, and they're going to continue to do it. Check out TroyLeeDesigns.com. SKDA is a moto graphics and seat covers company with several offices based around the globe. For too long, bikes and graphics have all looked the same. They just start to blend together. SKDA is working to change that. With super clean and unique design work, a bike with SKDA graphics stands out in a crowd and adds a touch of art to the world of moto. Hey, we need that. SKDA prides itself on providing premium customer service both before and after the sale is made. Visit SKDA online to view the current product range and get in touch with their team to get your bike refreshed. I want to just make a mention here that these guys, not only is their design way outside the box, very, very cool. They'll work with you on custom things. The products are incredible. Okay, they'll speak for themselves. But what's really awesome, and you'll notice this the minute you order one of these, man, they give you an email saying, hey, the product's been shipped. Hey, the product is here. It landed in this spot. Hey, it's coming today. Hey, your product's been delivered. They just so good about staying in touch with you and letting you know where it's at, Customer service is 100%, and that's just something that's rare these days. Check out SKDA. Here at the Whiskey Throttle Show, we're all about supporting brands that support our sport. And there's one tire company that has never walked away from the sport of motocross and supercross, and it's Dunlop. When times got tough and the economy took a crash, Dunlop stepped up and stayed with our sport to support it and the athletes and individuals that love it. Their MX-53 line and MX-33 lines absolutely dominate this sport. Every national championship at the pro level has been won in the last decade, and nearly every single amateur national championship at Loretta Lynn's has been won on a Dunlop. So if you're looking for high performance, you're looking for amazing quality, and you're looking to support a brand that never turns its back on our sport, there's only one choice for you, and it's Dunlop. Pro Circuit is the leader in aftermarket performance and quality. Whether you're looking for a little more horsepower out of your engine, some quality hard parts to improve the way your bike feels and looks, better handling through suspension or linkage arms, Pro Circuit is where you need to stop. It's your one-stop shop. You can go in there and get everything you need to make your motorcycle go from average to exceptional. Pro Circuit's got enough number one plates on their wall to side an entire home, and there's a reason for that. They're very, very good at what they do. The highest quality products with one goal in mind, and that's winning. Check out ProCircuit.com. Nihilo Concepts is leading the way in aftermarket hard parts. With their secondary on-switch device, something that was much needed in this sport, they've been innovating and bringing new products to market. Their latest is the new Nihilo Run Cool brake pistons. They're designed to be stronger than stock and provide exceptional cooling performance with less brake drag. Most OEM calipers pistons are made from aluminum that just can't hold up to the heat and extreme demands of serious racing. When they get hot, the aluminum will distort, causing loss of hydraulic pressure and brake failure. Nihilo's Run Cool pistons limit the area that boiling hot hydraulic fluid is able to come in contact with the piston, leaving 2/3 of the piston volume in open air with breather holes to enhance the cooling ability. It's made of a proprietary stainless blend, which is better at dissipating heat. You have issues with brake fade or brake failure, check out Nihilo Concepts among their many amazing hard parts and carbon fiber parts and titanium. NihiloConcepts.com. Seat Concepts is the leader in motorcycle saddles. If you're looking for a new cover or a new seat entirely, Seat Concepts is the place to go. They make custom seat foams catered to your height, weight, riding ability, riding type. They also have waterproof covers and foams that will not break down if you ride in a lot of inclement weather. And they pride themselves on being much more comfortable than OEM or any other aftermarket company. If you're looking for a new seat or a new cover, Seat Concepts, there's nothing better. Need to replace something on your bike that's worn out? Look no further than Pro-X. These guys aim to make everything OEM quality or better at an affordable price. And they've also got some new products coming. So right now, chains, sprockets, anything inside the engine internally, air filters. If it wears out, Pro-X makes it, and they make it at a quality level that's OEM or better. And they've got some new things coming that are awesome. A complete engine rebuild kits for the Polaris RZR 800s. Need to replace something on your bike that's worn out? Look no further than Pro-X. These guys aim to make everything OEM quality or better at an affordable price. And they've also got some new products coming. So right now, chains, sprockets, anything inside the engine internally, air filters. If it wears out, Pro-X makes it, and they make it at a quality level that's OEM or better. And they've got some new things coming that are awesome. A complete engine rebuild kits for the... If you've got a little Grom that's looking to get started in the motorcycle world, the best way to get them going is on a Stasic bike. They've got multiple sizes, so from your very young Groms to those who are a little more grown up, you can start them safely. They've got controls that allow you to control the speed so he can't get going too quick. They can touch the ground. There's not a lot of noise to distract them. It's the perfect way to get your child involved in motorcycling at a very young age. And if you've got a kid who's already out ripping, there's series popping up all over. For those of you in Southern California, go to www.ameminicross.com and join their local series. If you're outside of this state, contact your local track and ask them about starting a Stasic class at your local track. Get over to Stasic.com and check out all they've got going on. Motul USA, we lean hard on these lubricants to keep us on the track and on the trail. And Motul has proven their quality over and over, most recently with their Dakar win with Ricky Brabeck. They're sponsoring Supercross teams. They're diving into our sport again full full throttle, and we're stoked to have them on board. Amazing products, top to bottom. Motool USA. Go check them out. And finally, last but not least, Specialized Bicycles. If you are in the market to start pedaling, this is where you want to start. They've got great entry-level bikes all the way up to the Cadillac, the new Levo e-bike, anything in between, man. It doesn't matter what kind of riding you're doing. Go check out and start with Specialized. Don't waste your time on something that's going to break. The derailler's not going to shift after a couple months. Get something quality. These guys make it. Specialized leads that industry. Thanks for watching and listening to the Whiskey Throttle Show. Be sure to like and subscribe to get notified when new shows go up. And be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok. And visit whiskeythrottlemedia.com for additional content.